Welcome to episode number 2, or do we call it webisode number 2, I suppose. Joining me again, Pete and Mac. We're all ready for an exciting topic today. The registration numbers were awesome. We upgraded to the next package because we knew this was going to be a popular one. I'm going to keep giving a little extra time for folks to get logged in and get ready for this. I've got with me Pete, and obviously most everybody, you know Pete, you think intercoms, you think RF, but today we're going to think about Pete as intercom, right? And Mac, you and I, as behind the board guys, a lot of times intercoms where we live. It's a good thing and a bad thing, right? And today we're going to talk about some of the great tools we have to make things better. And as we're getting ready to go here, I will tell you right up front, this is a topic that 2 hours isn't long enough for. This is a topic that probably an entire week is not long enough for. It's a topic that could go on and on and on. And thankfully, we have some technology that's going to allow us to do that over the next several weeks here. So we're going to make the best of some challenging times and come up with innovative people, innovative topics, and innovative products on top of all that. So rest assured, as we go through this 2-hour episode, we're gonna make some notes, and we're going to probably break this up into several more broadcasts with ClearCom and the different projects that they have that we're using, and address those questions. So to that point, Pete, why don't you talk a little bit about how we're going to deal with questions in the chat windows and things that we are going to be able to follow along today.
Terrific, Kelly. I mean, I was watching all the network news stuff last night, NBC, ABC, and CBS, and they're doing this same kind of show right now. All of the broadcasters, all of the people contributing to the news event, we're talking from home. And I think it's sort of a humbling moment for them and an exciting moment for us because we're doing this for the first time. But on your attendee screen on the right-hand side, there is a couple of different things. You've got a little hand for waving, and I don't know why you would want to wave to us because I'm waving like this and you can see me. Right below that is a button with a question mark, and that's where you go to ask a question. I just typed in a sample question. It says sample quest. And then below that is a chat window. I already put in something called sample chat. And below that is a section called handouts, which is all of the different things that Rom is going to be talking about, which will be available in the Dropbox link when we post a video. There is no Dropbox link here, but these are all right here. So if you want to open them up and look at them, he goes along. And that's the main thing. The main key element is the questions. That's the only way we're going to be able to get information to Rom and Jonathan. So let's leave it there. Mac, you want to say hello? I'm going to go in the background and watch.
I'm just going to say hello and let Rom carry on because he's what this is about. He and Jonathan are what this is about. I'm going to be pretty much of a bystander until we get to questions.
Excellent. So that's a great segue. Rom and Jonathan, if you want to go ahead and join us now. Both these guys are application engineers with ClearCom. And the application engineer is a pretty valuable position, I think, in any company. And they are the bridge between us, the users, and the marketplace, and the factory, those who design the product, those who are maintaining that. And so you guys are a strong partner in what we do, and we appreciate you being with us today. And I know there's so many people here today. One thing I will note, this entire webinar is being recorded, so they'll be able to go back if you're joining late, no problem at all. You can watch this at any time if you need to get off early. But anyhow, Rom, Jonathan, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. And we're going to start walking through this and have a great day. And we'll be looking for all those questions coming in, and we'll find some appropriate times. But meanwhile, off to you guys.
Well, thanks a lot. So Jonathan and I are both application engineers here at ClearCom. We're sort of catch-all intercom psychiatrists. We help out with pre and post-sale application interests. We also help in the design of new gear and help to bring bug fixes that you guys and gals report to us, to the people who can help out with that. I'm sure at some point we're going to post our contact info, so if you ever need to contact us directly, you're always welcome to. I was you for many, many years before I came to ClearCom, so I'm particularly tuned in, and as was Jonathan also. We both worked in the industry, and you know, we know all the pain points. And as far as I'm concerned, I know what it's like to need an answer now, and I'm happy to answer your calls as long as I'm not on an airplane or in a, teaching a class like this. Obviously, I can't take the call, but other times I'll pick up my cell phone and try to help where I can or point you to somebody who can. We've got a lot of stuff we want to talk about today. This is not a deep drill down, although I'm hoping we can do some of that. My ADHD bona fides are quite well documented. That's what served me very well as an A1 in TV trucks for many years to, listen to 6 or 7 channels of PL, mix and talk back and all the other stuff you have to deal with in a live event. So I am happy to be sort of willy-nilly scattered. If you have questions, we hope you post them. And we also hope that the questions that we see and talk about will stimulate more questions. So we're really happy to go off tangentially in that regard. Having said that, Jonathan, anything you want to say?
No, nothing really to add, just that we're really here to advocate for you. We work with the customers, and like Rom said, we've been the customer before. So that's really where that forum is for us. And like he said, if you ever want to reach out directly to us, we're here for you. Support's always available. What makes this work is working as a team and working as a family.
Outstanding, yeah. And while we're sort of vamping a little bit for everybody to join us, I would like to say, and I'll probably reiterate this later, on the ClearCom website, in the support area drop-down menu there's something called Solution Finder. And the Solution Finder is, you can type in any subject or question. It's a pretty good search engine, and it's a fantastic tool if you're looking for answers to something that you may want to explore. We also pride ourselves in the fact that we're very interoperability friendly. We know there are other products out there, other manufacturers, and in that database, there's a lot of information that can show you how to connect ClearCom gear with Riedel or RTS or anything else that's out there. Or also, if you need to connect to a CCU or some other product, there's lots of good information there. But again, we're always willing and happy to help. One thing that I'm sure Kelly will expand on a little bit later is we're making available some documents over on the right-hand side in the handouts. You'll see there's some stuff available there. One of the things I posted is a PDF document that I've used at IATSE local trainings. Not all of it is going to be covered today. There's some stuff on matrix-based stuff that we're not going to get very deep into, but there's some interesting stuff. There's a great appendix that shows a glossary and has pinouts for different things and how to construct different sorts of stuff. So, check that out. Also, there should be a link at some point to a Dropbox folder, which has a folder on something that's called tips. And tips is going to show you, I've collected over the years many different things. How do I do this? How do we do that? How does this connect to that? What pinout is what? And let's at some point get you all hooked up into that, because that's going to be helpful to you. Alex Joyce has a question. I'm back on. Question, can you speak to site surveys and Freespeak systems? Absolutely, we're going to get to that. Determine what might be causing interference. Well, boy, that's the proverbial can of worms. RF is voodoo, and there's lots of many different answers that we can give to that. So let's talk a little bit about Freespeak, and then Alex, I'm going to get to your question as we come up into that area. So one thing I want to do here is, let's see, how do I've lost my share my screen. Where is that? Maybe that's right here. Let's see if that does it. It's not doing it. Guys, you want to tell me why
Sure,
I'm not
hang on one second. I'm just gonna check on your settings here real quick. And I'm going to Rom, and Rom, let's make you a presenter again. So
Yeah,
stand
present
by.
me. Oh, there I
Darn
am.
software. Yeah,
Now
there you
I'm a
go.
presenter. Okie dokie. Okay, so first of all, by the way, disclaimer on this, you know, we're all new at this, and I'm used to doing this live in front of people, so excuse my lack of alacrity here. Okay, so I don't really want to do death by PowerPoint so much here, but I'm going to use some of these illustrations to talk this out. Now, first of all and foremost, at this point in time, we're going to be addressing the Freespeak II base. And the Freespeak II base differs a little bit from the matrix-based system that some of you are working with in several different ways. But we will address that a little bit later. So if you have questions, I want you to ask them a little bit later on when we talk about the matrix system. The Freespeak II system, as I'm sure everybody who's on this call probably by now knows, comes in two flavors. It comes in 1.9 gigahertz and 2.4. I don't know that anybody on the list that I saw registering uses this particular application, but just so you know, we also make a hyperbaric chamber version of this for high pressure environments. So that'll get you a beer in a bar one day that you know that. So the system basically is we have a belt pack, we have a transceiver, and we have the front panel of the Freespeak II base 2, which is what you're looking at. Freespeak, when it first came out, was still using the old ClearCom, as we called it in the United States, or Freespeak 1 in the rest of the world. It was using that base station, which looks a little bit different than this. So if you are using a Freespeak system that has something that looks a little bit different, well, that's okay. It was an earlier version. The single screen version of this device actually does not use the browser-based GUI that we're all used to with this base. It uses a proprietary piece of software. Unless I get a lot of questions about it, I'm not going to go too much into that at this point. But if you ever have questions with that, of course, you can let us know. So our basic hardware is to start with this particular, the front panel. Many of you are familiar with this. Now, what some of you might not be familiar with, which is kind of interesting, is if you look where the menu button is, I'm sure you're all familiar with that, just above that is a mode button. That mode button will open up windows in the screens here, the 4 screens, cascading, just like the menu is, of different diagnostics and metrics of your system live at that point in real time. So you can see things like what belt packs are online, you can see what transceivers are online, you can see some interesting metrics if you're interested in such a thing as like the temperature of the base or some stuff like that. That's a very underused little tool that's actually very useful. Now, obviously in the GUI, you'll see some of that stuff, but in this case, that's pretty much the function. Whoever is sitting in front of this panel has special access to that kind of a thing. So it's a good thing to know about. The back panel is where things, of course, get interesting, and that's where we all live. So obviously, you know that there are two power outlets here, power points. One is the regular IAC connector that we're all familiar with, and another is for 12-volt DC. Now, the base station comes with a brick that allows you to plug this in. However, you know, believe it or not, it's not anymore, but there used to be a reality show called Biker Nuns. And Biker Nuns was just what it sounded like, a bunch of nuns in habits on Harleys. And there was a Winnebago that would follow them around. And in their helmets, the nuns had headsets and microphones and Freespeak belt packs on their belts. And they would talk back to a Freespeak base station that was sitting on the dashboard of the Winnebago that was chasing them. And they used that 12-volt connector there to plug into the cigarette lighter to power the base station. So I don't know if you have an application like that, but if you need one, it's there. Many of you have already been familiarized with using fiber with this, and we'll get a little bit deeper into fiber later on. But the next connectors there you see just to the right of the power. First, you see two SFP cages and two RJ45s that are bracketed with antenna 1 and antenna 2. Just so you know, if you don't already, you can use either the copper RJ45 or the fiber SFP for each transceiver port here. However, you can't use both at the same time, and that's important to know. So in the front panel from the menu or from the GUI, you can select which of those ports you're going to send a transceiver out, or a splitter. So we have two transceiver ports. Each transceiver port can go to a 5-way splitter. We'll see a picture of that in just a bit. That 5-way splitter would then make each of those ports 5 transceivers. So you'd have, because there's 2 of them, you'd have a total of 10. If you do not plug in to your, let's say you plug in just 2 transceivers, one in transceiver port 1 and one in transceiver port 2, you will see them report in the software as transceiver 1 and transceiver 6. The reason is that first transceiver port is only available, it's not only, but it is available for up to 5 transceivers, because the splitter would give you 5 transceivers. So if you have these 2 ports plugged in, you'll see one report as transceiver 1, and the second one will report as transceiver 6, because it's leaving the first 5 open to be put on that transceiver port. And hopefully that makes some sense. Now, right next to it, you see sync out and sync in. We're one of the few 1.9 decked manufacturers to do this, and we wish more did, and we're hoping that people follow suit. There are times when you need to connect, let's say, if you need it. Well, let me give you a real world application. I was at the Rugby World Cup last year, and I was doing the world feed, and we had a base station, and we had about 9 or 10 belt packs that we were using, and we had our stuff set up. The Ross video truck came in to do the NBC feed for the American market, and they had about 4 belt packs that they were going to set up on their set that was on the field. And when we were faxing everything out, we noticed we were seeing some clashing, which showed up as like packet loss. We were hearing like a lot of breakup and stuttering. What we did was we took, it doesn't make a difference which one, we took a piece of Cat5 and went from the sync out from one base to the sync in of the other base. And what that did is it kept each of the base stations from sending the algorithm for what the next decked slot would be. It would tell the other base to avoid it, and that way they could play nicely together and we had no conflicts. Keep in mind, in 1.9, you can only have 25 belt packs in one contiguous RF space. So that's just the laws of physics. We only have a 10 megahertz bandwidth that we can play in. And because of that, you can only set up, no matter how many base stations you have, you can only expect to be able to work with 25 belt packs in one contiguous RF space. Obviously, if there's a break in the coverage, and then let's say you have other transceivers in another space, maybe quite a ways away, that then starts a whole new contiguous space. But in the real world that we were working in, we had to play nicely together. So we used that deck sync, and it really helped out. Now, for people working on matrices, we have the same connection, except I will tell you that on the IPA card, that's our newest version of this. That's a feature that has yet to be unlocked. But people still using EQ cards in the matrix world, you can certainly use that. Okay, just to the right of that, we're going to see 4 XLRs, and these are set up in pairs, A and B, and then C and D. And the reason we set them up in pairs is you can configure these ports to be either, let me just make sure I'm closing that. You can set up these ports to be either ClearCom protocol or RTS protocol. Now, as you know, in the ClearCom protocol, 1 XLR is for only one channel of party line. In the RTS, 1 XLR can be 2 channels of party line because we're putting power and audio on the same pins in that setup. The reason we set them up in groups of 2, A and B, and then C and D is, let's say A and B are set up for ClearCom party line protocol, but you're connecting to maybe a truck that's pulling in that has RTS, and they want to put a couple of channels into your Freespeak system also. So you can set the C and D, and we'll show you how to do that once we start playing with the GUI. You can set the A and B to ClearCom and the C and D to RTS. Now, when the A and B are set to ClearCom, that's 2 XLRs for 2 channels. So you would come out of your Encore ClearCom party line system with 2 mic cables, and one from channel A, one from channel B, and put them into A and B respectively. As far as the RTS system for C and D, because we're putting 2 channels on 1 XLR, when you configure that pair of XLR ports to be RTS, they then become redundant. So C and D would be exactly alike because each one is able to accept 2 channels of party line, one on pin 2 and one on pin 3. Okay, and if there are more questions about that, we will certainly engage you in that regard. Okay.
Rom, this is Pete.
Yep.
Before we get too far away from the multiple bases question, we did have a question from somebody. Where would you want to use 1.9 instead of 2.4?
Mm-hmm.
And a similar question, is there any setting needed for syncing the stations? And I can answer that. I've done that several times, and there is no need to select anything. One of them would be coming from its sync out, and the other going to the sync to. And there was no limitation other than the total number of belt packs in the space is still 25.
Right.
Now, I found on the debates 4 years ago, when we're using base 1, we had broadcasters using Freespeak and we were using Freespeak. They were not synced together, but the total number of belt packs was only like 13 among all of us. So we didn't have to worry about syncing them, but we knew that in that situation, our latency would be a little bit more, and it didn't seem to get in the way.
Right.
But if you're going to draft the 1.9 versus 2.4, that would answer Jack Bernard's question.
Sure. Okay, Jack. So that's a great question. So there are a lot of different answers to that question. First and foremost, there are a lot of places in the world that do not, for example, China, that do not legally allow 1.9. Now, when I say 1.9, I really should elaborate here. 1.9 gigahertz, it's the spectrum in the United States. which has a specific deck stack, which is, I believe it's the white space between AT&T and Verizon, if I'm not mistaken. We get that 10 megahertz bandwidth of 1.92 to 1.93 megahertz. Now, what we're doing is we're using DECT in that case. In China, they don't officially allow it. There are certain cities that you can kind of get away with it, and they don't really regulate as stringently as the FCC or some of the other countries do. But there's just a question of legality, and we want to be compliant. So in those countries, we don't sell the 1.9. So that's, I mean, that's a no-brainer. 2.4 is going to work there. Now, having said that, 2.4 was great for a long time. However, 2.4 also became very popular with Wi-Fi, and we found that in certain applications like big sporting arenas or stadia, where they were flooding the 2.4 spectrum with wireless access points in different channels, it became a little bit harder. You know, our 2.4 uses frequency hopping spread spectrum, which I encourage you all to check out. You can do a Google search. And by the way, in the winning a beer in a bar category, it happened to be invented by a 1940s Hollywood starlet by the name of Hedy Lamarr. And that's a great story. Netflix has a great documentary on that. I encourage you to see it. So frequency hopping usually plays nicely with Wi-Fi. However, in these stadia and arenas where they're using most or all of the Wi-Fi channels and they're turning the amplitude of the transceivership up to 11, it gets a little hairy, and that's where 1.9 really helps. If you don't have that, hang on a second, if you don't have that kind of a problem in a stadium or an arena, actually sometimes 2.4 is better because it's a little bit less susceptible to multipath than the 1.9 is. Now, we've made some improvements recently, and we're going to talk about in a little bit about being able to work a little better with multipath, but the 2.4 generally gives us fewer multipath issues because it's a higher frequency than the 1.9 does.
I have found that the 2.4 and 1.9, if the transceivers are within 5 feet from an access point, both are degraded and won't work. So
Really?
you want to make sure you're. And when I was went into a show recently, they said they have a brand new Freespeak system. It worked everywhere in the theater except on the stage.
Wow.
And I walk out on the stage, sure enough, the 1.9 belt pack logged off.
Wow.
I went and said where the antennas were. We went and looked for the antennas, and they were on the grid 2 feet from an access point. I had to move the Freespeak antennas 30 feet away, and it worked perfectly.
Interesting. Okay.
Now, the other thing is on 2.4, same rule applies. If you're putting 2.4 or 1.9 antennas out, let's say in a theater, watch for the in-house Wi-Fi antennas and in-house cell phone antennas. Make sure that you're not near them, and you'll be fine.
Yep. Also, I might add that those are great points. I might add that sometimes you have to have more than one transceiver in one space, because each transceiver on the 1.9 is only going to allow 5 belt packs to attach to it. In the 2.4, it's 4 belt packs to attach to it. But if you're putting transceivers near each other, you do want to have a couple or 3 feet spacing between them. You don't want to just stack them up right next to each other. And that's also good practices. While I'm talking about that, I would mention also, best practice is to be between 8 and 15 feet high, and certainly always under a lighting grid, and on the belt pack side of an LED wall. LED video walls put a lot of electromagnetic field interference, and ostensibly it's like a wall of interference that's going to give you issues. We saw that in some of the Broadway shows like Frozen, that use many video walls, and they have one gigantic high def one that's in all the way upstage. In a case like that, you have operators who are working behind that wall, and you certainly need transceivers there, but they have to add additional transceivers in front of the wall for anybody who's going to be working in that area. So those are little gotchas that are just facts of life in the world of RF. Okay, so I see, wow, I see a lot of questions coming up. So let me take if there are 3 bases, can you daisy chain? Yes, as far as the deck sync is concerned, Mark, yes, that's correct. You can daisy chain decked out to decked in, and then from that, decked out to decked in. So that would be your 3 base stations. Again, you're running into issues when you've got that much conflicting potential for, packet collision. If you don't, I mean, look, this system is able to accommodate 25 belt packs. However, ClearCom does sell a scaled down version, which is upgradable with firmware. It's not hardware, but firmware. But we do sell a scaled down version. It's called the Base 5, which only allows 5 belt packs to be able to connect to a system. So if, let's say, you're a rental company and you have 3 of these, and they want 15 belt packs, well, you could certainly go out and sync the 3 of these together and have your 15 belt packs. I would think, if it was up to me, I would spend the money to upgrade the base so it can do 25 belt packs, and then spread your bases out more. That'd be more efficient as far as I'm concerned.
And Rom, it's important to say that the sync connection has nothing to do with your intercom connection.
Oh, absolutely.
This is only the sync to the antennas. So if you want to use the same channel on all 3 bases that you're connected together, you have to interface that same channel either through your 2-wire or through your matrix system.
Right, exactly. And we need to speak about sync for just a second. And Sheldon Fernandez brought up it's a good question. Is there any settings are there any settings you need for the sync? No, it's just plug and play, not plug and pray. Plug and play. You just plug the sync out of one base to the sync in of another base. It doesn't matter which one. There's no master or slave situation. You just have to plug the output of one to the input of the other. And again, if you need to daisy chain, fine. I've never done that, but I'm sure it works. But there are no settings that you have to set up, so that's good. Now, let me talk a moment about sync and decked, because this is going to bring up another question that we're going to get into in a little bit, which is, we call it antenna length compensation. Now, in the decked sync, think of it like a clock. There's a pulse, and the pulse happens in predetermined intervals, and that's as the belt pack goes from one transceiver and hands off to another transceiver as it moves along. The way it makes that handoff, just like your cell phone does on cell towers when you go down the road, it sees the pulse, and when that pulse happens, it can then jump to the next transceiver that it's preparing itself to go to. The physics of the cables that you're using to go from the base station and or the splitter to the endpoint, to the transceiver point, the cable itself, the copper in the cable, adds resistance. There's impedance, capacitance, all the physics of the electromagnetic signal that's going through there. There are 3 signals going through that cable. There's the decked sync, there's the E1, those are packets of audio, duplex packets, that's the audio going to and from the belt pack and all its channels. And then there's also power. Obviously, you could locally power your transceiver, but sometimes it's just more convenient to just let the parasitic power that the base station can throw out, or if you power your splitter, it can throw out. Rule of thumb, around 500, 600, 700 feet, maybe even 8 if you're very lucky on good cable, that power will power a transceiver. Once you go past that, you're going to need to locally power. The E1 packets and the DECT sync will go just about a mile on a piece of Cat5, not the DC voltage. It comes out of the base at 24 volts, and a transceiver can function down to about 18 volts or so, and then it starts to stutter. And so I've done some experimentation on very, very, very good Cat5 cable. I could get just about 1,000 feet, and was dipping down towards 18 volts. Not all cables are the same, and sometimes, you know, so I say rule of thumb, about 500 feet, you're good. After about 500 feet, you want to locally power your transceiver. Anyway, getting back to DECT sync, so I've got that pulse that's going on that is like the conductor of all the transceivers. That pulse is happening, and that pulse is allowing the transceiver to accept a new belt pack as it hands off with that same pulse. Now, if you add a lot of Cat5 cable length, let's say I've only got a 20-foot run to my next transceiver, but one that's maybe 400 or 500 feet away, which is certainly within range. But because of the nature of the cable run for that device, it has to go up and down through the wall, cable trays here and there. Maybe also it's going through a cable tray that has a loop of extra triacs that's been stuck up there, and now it's causing induction, which is going to sort of give us a little bit less productivity from our cable because of that induction. So all that is going to conspire to make our life a little bit miserable. And because that DECT sync that was happening, and a click, 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 now at that second cable is a little bit later. So what we do is we go to the antenna cable length little tab that we have by the antenna, and we can add length to that long cable's transceiver. Effectively, what we're doing is when we add length is actually we're delaying all the other transceivers in it. Think of it like when you're tuning a room with speakers and you're adding delay. So it's that kind of a process.
Rom, let me just mention the menu to do that length adjustment is no longer in the antenna tab. You can't find it. It's buried in the bottom of the base control. That menu to change the cable length is in a different place now.
Okay, it's you know what? Maybe I've been playing with the older firmware for a while. That some of my
Well, it's
clients
probably the older firmware. And
okay.
what,
Well, we're going to look at the GUI in a little bit. So yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I wanted to say one thing. When we're installing this system, we test the sync capability by walking around our venue with a plastic bag full of 15 belt packs all turned on. And we watched where it connects to as you go along. And as long as you get handoff between your antennas, it's fine. One situation I came up with, which we've had to repeat every year, is the Macy's Day Parade, where we have our main stage on 34th Street and the TV truck around the corner on 6th Avenue. And if the antennas are the same sync, the belt packs will not hand off around the corner. We found we have to set the antennas around the corner to be 1,000-foot cables, even though they're actually running on fiber, in order to make the sync work.
Yes, and by the way, fiber adds, because of the in the throughput of the transceiver, the fiber, that actually adds a little bit of delay, and you have to compensate for that when you're using fiber. Yeah, absolutely. Good point. Good point. There we go. So now we're seeing this is the.
Yeah, so just while we're hot on the topic and it's fresh in everybody's mind.
Can you blow it up a little bit? It's kind of a little bit small on our screens.
So we're looking at device tab. We look at our ports.
Mhm.
or sorry, in our station.
Station, yeah.
We look down at our transceiver ports.
Mhm.
And I think it's worth kind of important noting here. My general rule of thumb with these sync offsets is it's not necessarily the cable length. It's more of an increment on that offset.
Mhm.
Adding to
Right.
what Pete and Ron both said. Sometimes even if you're 1,000 or 100 meters, you might need to kick this out to 200 meters or 280 meters even, just to get that sync interval to line back up for you.
Yeah, I always tell people it's not really meters, it's bananas, because it's a function of the physics of the copper, or which, you know, every cable is not created equal. So yeah, you have to play
In
with
the
it a little bit.
34th Street example, I think they were the function of the multipath around all the buildings getting around the corner.
I didn't hear the first part of what you said.
In our 34th Street, in our 34th Street Macy's Day Parade, I think it was a function of the multipath among the buildings getting around and throwing it out of sync.
Yeah, absolutely. Reflections, multipath, they're all going to play in. So, you know, again, using this more as a tuning mechanism versus a cable length offset is really where we find the best luck with dealing with multipath. So pushing things way out to their extreme or further out than what you think would be comfortable based off what the value says is really where you start manipulating that sync offset.
Yeah, I want to plow through a couple of these questions because, you know, again, sadly, we don't have a lot of time, but we're going to do more of these and we're going to dive deeper. Let's see. Jeffrey Abramson asks, is there a cable length parameter for the sync cable between base stations? It's my understanding that someone once told me the rule of thumb for RS422 applies here. I have not tested it. I do not know, but that rule of thumb would be just around 1,000 feet. And it seems to me like that could work. I don't have the exact answer for you, but that's a good one. We should ask our product manager about that.
I can chime in. I did look that up. Current documented says 1,000 meters on good cable of Cat 5.
Meters.
Again, you know, you're pushing the bounds of physics there, and there are other things that apply. Conduit runs, cable traps with other cable types that might be emitting. So 1,000 feet is probably the unspoken rule of thumb.
Yeah, let me now address John Williams' question, which is a really good one, and I'm sorry I didn't bring this up before. John asks, can you utilize more packs by mixing 1.9 and 2.4, and can you use both bands through the same base regardless of quantity? Okay, so here's the thing. A base station limits you to use only 25 belt packs, whatever flavor. Now, in the physics of this, you can have 25 1.9 belt packs in one contiguous RF space. And additionally, you can have up to 40 2.4 belt packs in one contiguous RF space. That would require more than one base station. Okay, you could put your 25 belt packs for 1.9 on one, and you could put 25 more 2.4 on another base station. However,
on the standalone base, it's only 25 though. You can't have 40 on the standalone base.
That's correct. That's correct. But if you would, let's say 4-wire or 2-wire link together 3 bases, I could have 25 1.9 on one base, 25 2.4 on another base, and 15 more on a third base of the 2.4. Having said that, also you should know you can co-locate 1.9 transceiver belt packs and 2.4 transceivers and belt packs on the same base. So let's say I have 3 transceivers that I'm using for 1.9. That gives me 15 belt packs. But I also have a load of 2.4. So I could add another 7. Well, no, it's more than that. But let's say I can add more 2.4 transceivers to the same base station, even into the same splitter. and have those 2.4, obviously the 2.4 belt pack only works with the 2.4 transceiver, and the same thing for the 1.9 belt pack and transceiver. However, you can co-locate those transceivers and belt packs on a single base if you need to, which is the sort of the second part of that answer.
And that's limited to 25 total belt packs between the
base.
1924?
Per base. No matter what flavor they are, on a base station, you can only have 25 belt packs. That's not the laws of physics, that's the laws of product management. And that's how that works. But you know, if I wanted to co-locate 1.9 and 2.4 on one base and then deck sync it to a second base and get some more 1.9 and 2.4 there, I could certainly do that. Or I could separate one base for 2.4, one base for 1.9. However you want to do it, okay? Now Majid asks, has anyone had issues with Freespeak and Teradek interfering with each other? I do not have any information on that because I'm not familiar with Teradek. There are smarter people than me on this call and can probably maybe chime in. Okay, we got crickets. Nobody's talking. Okay, so Teradek, we're not familiar with, unfortunately, but we're going to look that up and get an answer for you, Majid. Okay, is there a length that you cannot exceed on the sync? Well, we just answered that, Alan. Sorry, so we got that for you. Tom Halpern says, please repeat how long the run can be for power. No problem. Okay, so let's say, coming out of the transceiver port on your base station, or from a powered splitter, or any combination thereof, you can go roughly, depending upon the cable, but I say rule of thumb, around 700-800 feet, where you can still be able to maintain integrity with your power. Once you pass that, it's best to locally power the transceiver. Okay. However, the other two signals that are on that Cat5 cable, remember, it's not a network connection, it's a proprietary signal. The E1 and the deck sync can go, like I said, about a mile, about 5,000 feet, maybe a little bit more. It's just that the power will degrade by the time it hits close to 800-900 feet. Okay. All right, Tom, got that. Now, Kate Fortech is asking, is there a median difference we can use as true rule of thumb for when to add length? So, yeah, I think we've answered a lot of that. Pretty much, you can remember that I can go from my base station transceiver port to a splitter about 700 or 800 feet and still power the splitter. However, now I can power the splitter with the wall wart, the 24-volt wall wart, and I can go another 800 feet to my transceiver. So
I think what she's asking about is, how do you adjust the cable length? When do you know when to adjust the cable length? And my
very
answer
good. Oh, now I understand. Thanks for clearing that up.
before is walk a bag of belt packs around, and if they reliably move from antenna to antenna to antenna, don't change a thing. If one antenna sucks the belt packs in and won't let go of them, maybe that antenna needs to be a different time.
Right. And Kate, so I guess the best rule of thumb there is, if a transceiver does not accept belt packs, in other words, I know, and you can look at it in the software and it'll show you, I know that when I get to a certain point, I'm going to be able to probably hop to that transceiver, and I don't, that's when I'm going to try to play around with the cable length, because it's not, because the deck sync is out of sync, it's not able, the belt pack, as it loses its ability, the way a belt pack even starts to search for a new transceiver to look for, it wants to hold on as long as it can to the transceiver it's attached to. Once it sees frame error rate, which you can actually look, if you look in that site survey mode, I think some of you have seen it, and it's certainly in the handout. Once you see frame error rate of like 1 or 2%, that's when the belt pack's going to go looking for a better transceiver. And if it sees one, it'll hop to it. However, if that transceiver, even if the belt pack is right next to the transceiver and it's showing a great signal, if that deck sync is a little out of sync, it is incapable of moving to that transceiver. So the rule of thumb for you is if it won't move, however, if you power cycle the belt pack and turn it back on, when you turn it back on from the power cycle, it does attach to the transceiver that's very close to you. That tells you that that transceiver is out of deck sync and needs cable length attention. Okay, hopefully that answers your question. Tyler, can you give an example how to tune the transceivers to get the best thing? Well, I think we just talked about that. Belt pack handoff. Obviously, my rule of thumb, I got to tell you, is with a system, I don't right away start playing with cable length, even though I know there's a long length there. I'm going to go exactly what Pete said before, that the bag of belt pack trick, where I put a bunch of belt packs in and I walk around and I'm communicating with somebody who's looking at the GUI and sees all the transceivers and all the belt packs that are attaching to their transceivers. That's only then when I see a transceiver that's just having a hard time accepting belt packs, that's when you're going to want to play with it. All right, I hope, Tyler, that answered your question. Now, Cameron is asking, this is possibly a question on a completely different level. That's fine, love those. But could you possibly tell me the difference between 2-wire and 4-wire? Cameron, I live to tell that question. That's my raison d'etre. Okay, and I'm going to take a little 2-minute moment here, and I hope those of you who already know the answer to this, just give us a minute to help out our buddies who are a little confused here. Let me make this example. Cameron, okay, I've got a microphone, all right, and you have an amplifier in your room. You're in another room. The twisted pair of audio, remember, mic cables have a twisted pair and a ground, right? That plus and minus the alternating current and twisted pair comes from my microphone. Obviously, I'm bringing it up to line level for this example, and goes through the wire to your room and goes into your amplifier. And you have a volume control, and you can control how loud I am. I can actually, on my mic to line amp, also control how much volume I'm sending to you. Okay, that's 2 wires, but it's not a 2-wire system. It's half of a 4-wire system. Okay, so you have the same thing. You've got a mic, okay, and you've got those 2 wires that are coming into my amplifier. Obviously, there's a ground connection too. 3. That's why there are 3 pins on an XLR. And I can control your. That's a 4-wire circuit. And it's the simplest circuit there is. It's just mic out or line out and line in, and very controllable, and it's awesome. However, once Thomas or Majid or John or anybody else wants to chime into this party, now I need a distribution amplifier to go to all their devices, and I need a mixer to take all their inputs, as you can see here, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm taking that 4-wire out and 4-wire in and putting them into this complicated circuit, which is 2-wire, that takes the input and the output from 4 wires and puts it into one 2-wire circuit that is an in-out. Okay, and it requires all kinds of jiggling with null circuitry and termination circuitry, so it's a complicated circuit. However, it's very easy to distribute. I don't need all those mixers and distribution amplifiers and effectively a matrix, routers and such. All I need is a Y cord or daisy chain from one belt pack to another. Obviously, we're careful about daisy chaining belt packs, because if people are moving around, then of course it turns into an episode of the Three Stooges and everybody gets yanked around. But you can make Y cords, or you can make an IO panel. So the 2-wire circuit is a little complicated, but incredibly easy to distribute. And all the complicated circuitry makes it so, and this is the genius of Charlie Button 50 years ago when he invented this process, I can just keep adding belt packs or devices to the system, and within reason, of course. I think with the modern 700 series Encore belt pack, you can put about 100 belt packs on a power supply, because it uses very little current draw. But I don't have to keep tweaking the system each time I add more devices like I used to have to do in the old, like the McCurdy systems. but that's the difference, and I hope that answers your question. All right, I want to get some more questions in and out here so that we, what are we looking at? I'm sorry, we are looking at why am I not seeing this? Oh, you're showing the GUI, I see. Okay, you want to chime in with that?
No, somebody just threw the control over to me.
Okay, take it.
We can keep on with answering a couple of these questions here real quick. If that
I
works.
gave it to you if you want.
For Robert, plans to expand number of belt packs beyond 25 in the near future. You can currently expand beyond 25. It does require a jump up to our Matrix series, but on Matrix you can have a capacity of 50 belt packs currently.
Of the 1.9.
Yeah, of the 1.9.
And not that I'm supposed to tell you this, but there's a way to hack it so you could even have 1.9, 50 belt packs and up to 40 2.4 belt packs too. There are ways to hotline the systems like that, but you didn't hear it here. Oops, we're being recorded. Oh well.
I didn't second that. Let's see, for Cape 4 Tech, will that work over one cable, or do you need to run separate cable infrastructure for 1.9 and 2.4? The beautiful part here, Kate, everything works on a standard Cat 5e, Cat 6 cable, so completely interchangeable. If you've got one show that the RF space,
but it can't be the same network. They have to be in the standalone. It's all home runs back to your splitter
It's
or
not
the
network.
base.
Yeah.
They cannot, they're not a network cable. Don't confuse it with a network.
Right. Now, let me say something else in that regard, Kate. And I should have said this before. When the signal comes out of the base station, it is frequency agnostic. There is no RF in that signal. That signal is E1 packets of audio, decked sync in the case of when we're talking about, decked and handoff, or if things work a little bit different in 2.4, but that's the basic concept, and power. Those are your three things. Only once it gets to the antenna and the transceiver on the antenna starts to pound out the RF, does it become 1.9 or 2.4. Okay, so there's no frequency coming out of the base station. So I can take a cable coming out of the base station, plug it into a 1.9 transceiver, unplug it, plug it into a 2.4 transceiver, and it's going to work either way. Obviously, the belt packs that attach to it have to be compatible. A 1.9 with a 1.9 transceiver, a 2.4 belt pack with a 2.4 transceiver. I hope that answers your question. You want to continue on with this, Jonathan? Or we got, Henry. Here's Henry. Teradek, thank you, sir, is generally 5 gigahertz. 5 gigahertz, that's a whole different concept. Now, I would like to mention that on this coming Thursday, there will be a ClearCom webinar, and I think a link to it will be posted on this site, on the practicalshow.tech site, where Frank Litton is going to be talking about the new upcoming, it's not out yet, but we're doing beta, and it's actually coming out pretty well. We will have a 5 gigahertz version of Freespeak II that will work with the Matrix systems. It won't work with the base station yet. And the base stations eventually, that's a whole long story. I won't complicate you with that. But there eventually, within a year or so, we're looking at a new base station that will be able to accommodate that. But the Matrix system will work with that 5 gigahertz. And the thing about the 5 gigahertz, it is not only good with multipath, it actually likes multipath because that's the way that works. Okay. It's Simon Brown that's going to be doing that, I'm seeing. Okay, well, even better. Okay, I thought it was Frank. Whoever it is, there will be a 5 gigahertz webinar. We'll be talking about what's coming down the line. I would recommend that people who are working in our world today, even while we're waiting, and we will go back, and we will go back, by the time you get back out there into the field, we're going to probably start seeing this device out in the marketplace. So I would highly recommend you look at that webinar and, you know, get some spaghetti on your wall about what's coming in the 5 gigahertz world. Okay. Okay, there's a bunch of people are talking about Teradek. It's wireless IP, transmit, receive, 5 gigahertz. Okay, so that, by the way, I'm getting a note. The 5 gigahertz Edge Freespeak webinar will be Simon Brown, Steve Watanabe, and Justin MG, who is my boss. And thanks for watching, boss. He's the best. Okay. All right. So should I be able to see all the questions or the chat window? Glenn, I'm sorry. I don't think you can see either. Am I right about that, webinar gods? Glenn still was asking if he could see all the questions in the chat window.
Well, depending on the devices you're logged into, sometimes it should show up in your control panel, but that's why we're sharing them here. So, and we'll do our best to make these available. Obviously, when you listen back to the recording, you'll hear all these answers as well. So thanks for that, for my non-answer.
Very nice and non-answer. Okay, Glenn, sorry. But, you know, if you want, I've got the secret list. And since you're my bro, I can get it to you at some point. By the way, I'm also being told that the webinar is going to take place on Thursday at 10 p.m. Pacific for any of you people who are daring enough to put your toes into the 5 gigahertz Freespeak waters. I highly recommend it. It's coming. It's going to be everywhere. And it's not as easy to deploy. It's not hard to deploy. It's different. It's going to require frequency coordination. And you guys want to get a leg up because the people who know how to deploy this stuff are the ones who are going to get those gigs. All right, enough of that sales pitch. Okay, so talking about nulling. Yeah, we're going to do that in a second. Oh, with Jonathan Lutman. Is there an easy way to get 4 channels from a Helixnet base station into a Freespeak base station instead of having to have 4 channels wire cards? And yes, oh yes, 11 a.m. for that webinar. I keep seeing. Just go to the ClearCom website. It'll tell you what you need to know about the edge. Okay, sorry. I got my boss, all those dings.
Well, except the answer to his question, no, there's no easy way to connect Helixnet and Freespeak except by the other way. So you'll have to wait to Edge for that.
That's not for the Freespeak. That's correct. Helixnet, yes, with LQ, which hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about. I'm so long-winded here. I think I'm ruining it. But Freespeak, you've got. Well, no, I don't think that's Jonathan's question. Here, let's read it again. Is there an easy way to get 4 channels from a Helixnet base station to a Freespeak II base station instead of having 2 4-wire cards in the Helixnet base station? So the answer to your question, Ed, I'm sorry, I can't talk now. So the Helixnet can use an LQ box, which we're going to talk about hopefully very shortly, as more I/O for the Helixnet when they're network connected. Okay, the Freespeak base station will not doesn't have that ability. So, but I think the question you're asking is, does the Helixnet base station can you add more than the four ports, so to speak? And the answer is yes, and that's with LQ. Jonathan, we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
But they still, the Helixnet and the Freespeak still can only connect with the 4-wire or the 2-wire connections. There's no network connection.
The Freespeak, right. Okay, but I was a little bit curious about the way Jonathan asked the question. I thought he was talking about Helixnet since he was talking about the 4-wire cards. But yes, Peter is absolutely correct. There's no way to network connect a Freespeak base and a Helixnet base. Sorry. Just watch this space. Things will get cool. All good things come to all good people, and all audio people are good people. Okay. Dave Unger wants to know a little bit about nulling, and yes, we'll talk about nulling. And can you talk about interfacing Freespeak and wired comm, which obviously nulling is going to be a part of that conversation. So anytime you go from 2-wire to 4-wire, where's my camera here? I don't know, whatever. Anytime I go from 2-wire to 4-wire, I need to know. What does that mean? Part of the process of this complicated system is making sure that the input and the output, because they're co-joined now on those 2 wires, don't interact with each other. Otherwise, I'd get echo and sometimes it adds hum and some other issues. So we do nulling. Jonathan, you want to talk about your picture showing up there? I'm going to mute my mic and my camera.
Wasn't my picture showing up, but we can talk about nulling.
That was Pete again with his little drawing.
Pete, if you want to explain what was going on with your drawing, we can talk more about that.
Okay, Pete, do you want to talk about that then, since you had the drawing up?
So I think I put the drawing up. Do you see that on the screen?
Yep, we do.
Okay. This is a easy explanation of converting 4-wire into 2-wire. And if you look at the left-hand side of the screen, I still don't see it. Oh, there it is. If you look at the left-hand side of the screen, a 2-wire intercom connection is a single wire and a ground. So basically all your audio is transmitting both directions on the single wire, indicated by the arrows going both ways, and a ground goes into the intercom. And then a 4-wire connection is something you can amplify. Each one is just an audio. So you have an audio signal coming this way from your other intercoms maybe, and audio coming this way from your 2-wire. Now the trick with that is if I just connect the 4-wire audio, parallel it together, and stick it into the 2-wire intercom, I'll be able to hear the 2-wire intercom into my input of the 4-wire. That's fine. And the 2-wire intercom will be able to hear the audio coming in from my other audio, but it will also be going out the same 4-wire and essentially feeding back. Now, what a hybrid does, which is the device you need to interface 4-wire and 2-wire, it has this little center connection there in the oval that says null controls, and it takes a signal from the 4-wire audio and minuses it from the signal going into the 4-wire audio output. So I'm using controls, either little knobs, or in terms of the Freespeak system, there's a button you click, or in terms of Studio Technologies model 46, 7, and 8, rather 46 and 47, you push the null button and a computer does it. It's adjusting it until the audio from the input is subtract from the output. And all I've got left is the audio come from the 2-wire. Now, no hybrid system does a perfect job of this. So no matter what you do, you're always going to have a little leakage of the audio coming back into your 4-wire. But this is a general representation, and this is on the Best Audio website in the download section if you want to take a look at it and spend more time looking at it. But it's a situation that takes a while to learn, and the best way to learn, obviously, with equipment in front of you. So hopefully this can give you a step up to start learning what it's all about. But the main thing is 4-wire is used in the more professional situation where you have an interface to an Atom system, an Eclipse system, or to a Riedel system, and the legacy connection of 2-wire belt packs, which are on a single wire. And the legacy was originally from the first telephones, your telephone that you had on a party line with your neighbor. Probably none of you are old enough to remember that, but I grew up with a phone in my house. I picked it up, I heard somebody talking on it, and they were my neighbor. And that was a single ground wire and a single audio wire on a party line. That's where the name party line came from. So now you know everything there is about 2-wire, 4-wire. Put
With
down
voltage.
the phone.
Yeah.
All
Now,
right,
With
so
voltage, there we go.
So maybe that'll bring us back to the hardware then. And let's talk a little more about that, Rom. And Jonathan, you know, the Freespeak obviously is equipped to deal with 2-wire directly into it, as is, you know, Helixnet. And, you know, what is your solution then from a factory standpoint?
Okay, so first of all, Helixnet, Freespeak, and LQ all do auto null. So a couple of rules of thumb before we even talk any further. And that is, you need to be able to, when you null, you must make sure that no device has its talk path engaged. In other words, nothing is latched on talk, because that's going to flummox the math of all the computation that's going on to make a good deep null. That's first of all. Second of all, just so you know, and keep note of this, if you're using an LQ box and you do a null, when you first plug it in, that's great, it'll work fine. But after about 10 or 20 minutes, the printed circuit board heats up, and the physics of the heat and the components will bring the null out of null. So you want to do an auto null again. Auto nulls are very easy. One thing you probably want to know when you do it is make sure everybody takes their headsets off, turns their speakers down, because it is going to put splash tones onto the line that can be annoying to people. Okay, but certainly there can be no talk paths, and you know, to quote Sister Elephant or whatever her name was, no talking when you're doing nulling. That's first of all. Second of all,
Important to also note, don't bother doing your nulling until you put all the belt packs out, all
yes,
the 2-wire belt packs.
exactly,
Because as you add 10, 20 belt packs out there, your null is going to be totally different. So you can do the null to start out, but do it every time you make a major change in the wiring.
A major change. If I add one belt pack or one wire, that's not a major change. But if I add 3 or 4 belt packs, that's a major change. Now, what we're looking at now, Jonathan has got open the GUI, the browser-based software for the Freespeak. And what we see here is the device tab, and we're looking at the ports. He's selected a 2-wire port. And now at the bottom there, once he's added power and termination, he's going to hit that start nulling button, and it's starting. And it says training. In other words, it's teaching the line how to play nicely between 2-wire and 4-wire. Jonathan, I shouldn't be talking for you. Go right ahead.
No, you're fine. You can keep driving.
Okay, I'm fine. So now, when that auto null is finished, and it takes about 20 seconds or so, once that's finished, and of course it's going to depend upon how much load is on the line, then you'll get back to your start nulling line, and it's done. Again, I like to null more than once when I'm setting up a new system. Also keep in mind, if I'm connecting a Freespeak to a Helixnet, I need to null at both ends if I'm doing 2-wire. So if I've taken the power and termination on my Freespeak port, and I'm taking that and plugging it into a 2-wire port on a Helixnet, I want to null at the Freespeak end. And then I want to, obviously, as Peter said, after I've configured my system with all the architecture that's going to basically live there as close as I can get, make sure all the talks are closed, I'm going to null like Jonathan just did by hitting that start nulling. Then I'm going to go to the GUI for the Helixnet and do the same thing to its 2-wire port, null that. And I'm going to do that a couple of times back and forth to ensure that I've got a good deep null before I really want to deploy my system. Some of the things that you will notice when you're out of null is echo, and you'll notice sometimes hum or buzz, and the nulling is a great balm for that. Now, one thing that's important to know is, let's say on a regular belt pack, a wired belt pack, we've all seen there's that little screw where you can change what's called side tone. Side tone is your insurance. Side tone, when I hear my voice in my earphone on my headset, I know that my talk is engaged and somebody's listening to me. And then when I unlatch my talk, I don't hear that anymore. So that let me know, okay, now I can say whatever I want and nobody's going to hear me. So if you don't like rewriting your resume a lot, make sure you use side tone. The way you achieve side tone on a wired belt pack is you take the belt pack locally slightly out of null. And yes, and Mike Rucker is chiming in here saying that you're going to the nulling after the system is warmed up a bit. Absolutely. I like to null once the system is warmed up. Typically, I turn stuff on and then I plug things in, and then by that time the system is warm. I don't think you ever plug it in and it's completely wired up yet. I've yet to work with a crew who can do that. I'd love to. If you're that guy or gal, send me your resume. So you're going to want to rock back and forth with your nulling. Keep in mind that side tone on a wired device is taking your device locally slightly out of null. So when you talk, it loops back to you, and that's how that works. All right. Jonathan, do you want to go over anything more in the GUI before we move over to Helixnet?
I think everybody else is very familiar with the GUI. Really just, those important things again, overview page, that's where you're looking at those transceivers. So if you are doing that site survey, if you're walking a line from transceiver 1 to 2 to 3, you should expect to see those handoff. And if you only see that belt pack going from 1 to 3, back to 1, back to 3, then you know to start looking at transceiver 2. So just kind of coming full circle back on troubleshooting that wise. Outside of that, your standard versions and within your station settings, again, that's those sync offsets. I think that's everything we really talked about so far.
All right. Just getting to a couple of the questions before you go into more of the GUI stuff, because we do want to give a quick overview before we jump ahead. I see Alan is asking, is there spacing you need between 1.9 and 2.4 transceivers if you're using both systems together? Good practices say a foot or two for sure. I wouldn't put them like touching. And Rajan is asking, have any, the proverbial question, any thoughts of having an offline editor for the GUI? Many, many thoughts, Rajan. A lot of us would like to see that. However, sadly, at this point in time, we don't have that capability. I know they're working on it with the next generation of browser-based systems to do it. It's very complicated because it's not a proprietary piece of software anymore. It's a piece of firmware that lives on a chip on the base itself. So yes, we are aware of that. We all want it, and we're hoping we can get to it at some point. I think the best you can do is every time you're working with a live system, play around as much as you can and save it. And Henry wants to say that he likes to null every morning and after every show. And I would like to know if Henry was toilet trained by a German governess, because I think that's a little extra, but probably that's why Henry gets the big bucks and I'm just, a crew puke. He's been around the block quite a bit, and I guess if you can null as often as possible, it's good practice. And I don't not recommend that, Henry. I think it's great. I just wish everybody would remember to do such a thing, but you can survive without that. David is asking, might want to note that the 2-wire modules in Helixnet must be oh, very, very good. That's a good point. The Freespeak base, the new Freespeak base, can actually generate the 30 volts necessary for PL power, which actually will also fire up that interface. However, the 2-wire module slot that goes into a Helixnet base station has no ability to either generate power, or if there's no 30 volt power coming to it, it will not even function. So that's important. And also to note, and we'll talk about this when we talk about Helixnet, putting those slots, those module slots in and out of the base station, they are not hot swappable. They are not hot swappable. You must pull power to the base in order to make that happen. All right. Jonathan, you've got control of the GUI. Do you want to give us the cliff notes on the rest of the GUI with this before we go to Helixnet, please?
Yeah, I think, again, going back, I think everybody's probably comfortable with it. So we'll just take a rip through real quick, kind of show you some of our favorite places to look for troubles and issues, kind of see where things are happening and things aren't happening. So
Yeah,
again,
you do that while I got my hat on backwards.
gotcha.
If you can zoom in on the important places, it's a
Yep.
little hard to see on the screen.
Yeah, absolutely will. So again, from this overview page, that wireless belt packs, this is the best place for when you're doing those site surveys. So again, like Pete mentioned, load up a backpack, throw belt packs around your belt, put them in a plastic bag, do something that's really going to stress the system out, and do something that intentionally does overload that one area or those two areas that are going to be super critical during the show.
Might I suggest also, when you're first checking your system out, take 2 belt packs, listen to one, put a headset on, swing the mic up over your head, and
Yep.
talk in the second one, because the side tone in the Freespeak belt packs is generated internal to the belt pack. So you can walk around the whole venue and it'll sound great.
Yep.
But if you're listening to another belt pack talking in another, you can hear when it starts to drop out before the signal gets too low. So as you're walking bag of belt packs around, listen to a belt pack, talk in a belt pack.
Right. Yep. And you can look at site survey mode on the belt packs all day. You can look at the statistics in the GUI. But at the end of the day, when you start hearing that digitized or that repeated audio or the drops in the audio, that's your biggest indicator of where you need to go spend some time. So again, if we're looking at, specifically, maybe I'm listening on this belt pack 1, I can see it's connected to that first transceiver. I can also click on this icon up here. I can see some information about that transceiver. So maybe I want to check the version. I want to check to make sure from the ClearCom website it matches the version for the base. Or if I've got 5 transceivers that I borrowed from a friend's company, I want to make sure that all 5 of those are the same version. So when we start talking about why aren't things jumping to this one antenna, or why am I always hearing the same degraded audio on this one antenna, again, let's go in, see who's connected, what's connected, and we can look at that antenna itself. The other thing we can do is we can actually get the status off that belt pack. So if we think it's coming from that belt pack and it's got a talk key open, we can do a remote mic kill right from here, mute that audio, and we can better track that audio down of where it's coming from. Maybe it's coming through transceiver 1 and we're listening on transceiver 6, or we're listening from the base, so we know it's a receive from that one device. So a couple really good tricks there from the GUI side. Outside of that, we talked a little bit about device. Again, versions here. I think you guys are all comfortable and familiar with checking the version. We just like to make sure that the version matches the transceiver code and it matches the belt pack code. All that information is available on our website. If you need the software, you can get a hold of one of the AEs or tech support.
If you're renting a system, and it's a good thing to go in and look at the software version in your bases and on every belt pack. Last show I was on, I was having problem with one belt pack, and it had a really old version of software in it.
Right.
And I couldn't do a firmware update in the middle of the show, but so I gave it to one of the audio guys. They said, it's gonna not work too well, but you use it.
Yeah, and that's a really good point to make too, particularly if we're looking at a version variance on the belt packs of a version 1 to a version 2. They deal with the deck sync and they deal with roaming within that deck space a little differently. So if you do have an antenna or a belt pack rather that likes to stick to one particular antenna, whereas the other belt packs in that bag are freely walking across the other antennas, usually you can come in and look at this belt pack and we can see that belt pack is probably on an older version.
By the way, there is a way that you can upgrade a belt pack or a transceiver actually with a wire, with a USB wire, so you don't do it over the air during the middle of your show if you have to. We use the software that we use for our matrix, which is EHX, and that has the ability to do that. And we'll talk about that in a future webinar.
I think we got a question from Dan Puchanti, I think. I don't know how to pronounce his name right, but He's asking about the RF audio filter, which is not really an RF audio filter. It is when you turn it on, it will take a good packet of your signal and use it to fill in lost packets. So your signal won't sound like it's dropping out. It may be dropping out, but it won't sound like it's dropping out.
Yeah, and one thing to note, and we're showing you now where to find that in the devices and in the station, I believe. There's down, where's that audio filter? No, it's not in roles, is it? Is it in roles? No, I think it's the device.
Bottom of the base, go to the base in devices.
Just go all the way down. No. Boy, we know our software well, don't we? There you go.
Yeah. I'm used to being in Matrix.
Yeah. And by the way, I should mention, when you engage this RF filter, you're adding more processing. So it's going to give you a tiny bit more latency, and the
20
audio,
milliseconds at max. I never don't use it.
yeah, no,
All
I
the
agree.
time I leave it on.
The amount of latency and the amount of signal and audio degradation is minimal. Golden ear people will hear it, but it's very, very minimal. So I agree with you, Peter. I think you should always use it.
Let's see, other things we've already looked at as far as those ports. So when we're looking specifically at those 2-wire ports, Rom mentioned, we do have the ability to flip those between ClearCom mode and RTS mode. You can do it through the base. You can also do it through the web GUI. I just think the web GUI is always easiest. So again, if we come in and select these ports here, let's say C and D, we want to make those, combine those into an RTS mode. We drop down our mode. We select RTS, and these two ports physically on the back are now, port C physically is acting as channel C and channel D, or port C, port D, and likewise for port D. So those become a mirrored RTS 2-channel port.
Let clear this up for me. As an RTS connection, you're not getting a 2-channel RTS into either of those. You're getting channel A into the C and channel B into the D, right?
So the XLR physically on the back, port C and port D, those now become mirrored, so they're the same, and you'll have channel A and channel B on a single XLR off both ports.
So where do you select where you're going to listen to channel A and channel B? I don't see that selection in the RTS mode. I think channel A comes in C and channel B comes in D.
Rom, can you elaborate on that?
I'm sorry, I was reading the question. I'm sorry, say that again.
Changing over to RTS mode, port C and D physically become channel A, channel B off the RTS side.
Yeah, Pete is
What I'm
right.
saying-
It's just that they appear on one XLR connection.
Yeah,
Right, yeah,
but they
and they're
become
It's like
mirrored
port
ports.
C and port D.
Right.
But
They become
they're on
mirrored
one
ports.
XLR.
Yeah, and they become mirrored ports, so you can grab
But
that
the only way to get channel B of your RTS is to plug that channel B into the D connector.
No. Okay.
No, it comes into both of them on one XLR.
Right. So on your SAP panel, let's say you put a 1/2 or a 3/5. Okay. You plug that into port C, and port D is going to have it too. You can actually use it to daisy chain out to an actual belt pack or to some other RTS device. But because these 2-wire ports are set up in pairs, when I assign it to RTS mode, then the C and the D port mirror each other, as opposed to ClearCom mode, where the A and B ports stay discrete. Because we're putting 2 channels. Let's say I've selected the C and D, either one, and I made it RTS. Now both of those ports are going to be exactly the same. So let's say if I dialed it up as a 2/5, both the C and the D port will be 2/5. I can plug it into either one.
But
So-
your 2 will come in the C channel and your 5 will come in the D channel internal to the
Right,
Freespeak.
when I go to
Right.
when I go to assignments page, that's correct.
Right.
That's correct. You know, I've got a general question to our facilitators. We're coming up to 1/2 the hour. We only got officially another half hour left. I don't know if we're going to have more time or if we want to just move on now to Helixnet, LQ, and Agent IC, which we'll not be able to cover very well. What do you think?
Well, we have time, so we can keep rolling from here if we've got the
Good.
questions coming in about this.
Good.
We
Okay.
don't have a hard out. The bird isn't costing us anything, so
Okay. All
we
right.
can let this baby roll as long as questions are coming in. Obviously, this video is available on demand at the end of this, so don't hesitate to come back to us and watch this later. But that's not a problem. So let's just keep heading on from here,
Okay.
Rom.
Let me answer some more of the
Also,
questions.
let me just say one thing. Also, the list of questions will be posted with the video, and that list of questions, for the most part, will have a time code of when we gave the answer to each one of those questions. So you can scroll into the video just
Some
to
of them,
hear
yeah.
that particular
Mhm.
answer.
Some of them have time code, yep. Okay, so Keith Price is asking if there's a minimum cable length to know. No, there is not. That's, you know, whatever you've got plugged in. I will say this, if you have nothing plugged into a 2-wire port, do not associate it with a channel. It will cause echo. No matter how you null it, because there's nothing to null to, so it can't really null. It will give you, that's problematic. If you're not using the 2-wire port, or if you're going to need it later on and you're going to plug something in, but it's not plugged in now, disassociate it with the channels and then just associate it with the channels once you plug wires and endpoint devices in. Okay, that's very important. But thanks for that, Keith. Now, Callie is asking, I had an issue a while ago with the belt pack mic. Yes, very good. Belt pack mic types. We used to ship it out as a set for auto detect. In other words, it will automatically detect whether it's an electret mic or a dynamic unbalanced mic. That was problematic. And we have always recommended, and when I install a system, I always do this first. Among the many settings that I change from default, that's one of them. I will change them all to dynamic unbalanced mic, which is the most ubiquitous mic that's out there. Almost everything has a dynamic unbalanced mic. The reason we do this is the threshold to be able to perceive if it's an electret mic or a dynamic mic was not quite properly set. And so its ability to be able to detect is not so good. There is new firmware coming out which will fix that. But right now, I recommend that you set them all to the kind of mic you're using. And again, almost everybody uses dynamic unbalance on their headsets. Okay, and Dan, so yeah, so when dealing with bad multipathing, is there covers that make the breakup inaudible? This covers by making
He's talking about the audio filter. So
okay.
typically, let's say
Gotcha.
you have somebody on a Freespeak belt pack and they're walking around the venue, which is the worst situation to transmit in, and other people may hear him dropping out. Well, turning on the audio filter, yes, it will cover the dropout a little bit. It's not going to solve perfectly the whole thing, but yes, it will make the breakups inaudible.
Okay, so do you understand David Zamet's question there, Pete?
Not exactly. He says he's used it before when you plug RTS into, and of course that RTS AB is determined by the SAP. Well, a lot of systems, certainly if you're using an RTS system, well, you will have a SAP or a source assigned panel, which allows you to select what is on your channel A and what is your channel B. if I'm not mistaken, in the Helixnet 2-channel interface, you can select RTS 1 or 2. Is that right?
Yes.
You can select channel
Yeah,
1 or
pin 2 and
2
pin 3, right.
when you're in RTS, but in the Freespeak, it takes them both together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and I
the
think Dave is just clarifying that point. I don't think he's asking a question there.
yeah, exactly.
But by the way, just as I'm reading this, it reminds me, in the Freespeak belt pack, because it can generate the 30 volts either for ClearCom protocol or RTS protocol, you can plug a belt pack. Once you've added termination and power to that port, you can plug a belt pack right into the back of the master station with a short audio cable and have a wired belt pack right there. So that's
I've done that several times in small shows where I have only 2 or 3 belt packs I have to put out. I just power it right off the station.
Now with the 700 series belt pack, because of the low voltage draw, that you can have, I think you can have like 10 or maybe even a few more than that of the 700 series belt packs hang off the back of the Freespeak base station. Alex is asking, there's a way, and perhaps this is with Helixnet, there's an actual channel selection in RTS mode, channel 1, 2. I have used the interface Helixnet Freespeak to RTS systems. I needed to send just the production channel to video, and I was able to select which channels to send to them. That's correct. And that happens in the assignment page, by the way. That's where you would find
for Helixnet only, not in the Freespeak. Although you can assign to either C or D, which are your A and B channels into the RTS. Put them in any assignment, any party line.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, make it bigger. There you go. Okay, so that one is set up as ClearCom, or see it says RTS pin 2 or RTS pin 3. That's your channel A or channel B coming in from the SAP. If you're in RTS mode. Yep. Okay.
That's showing the Helixnet panel.
Yes.
Correct. That's a Helixnet system.
In Helixnet. Right. Just quickly, while we're here, you're seeing this as a browser. And for some of the people who may be a little bit confused here, as I said before, the browser-based web GUI that we use here is actually burnt into with the firmware to the base station. And so as long as my computer is on the same subnet as the base station's IP address, I can type in the IP address in my browser window, and then I get to see that that GUI, and that's how that's done. Obviously, as I said before,
type in the IP of the base.
Of the base, that's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Then you see the GUI.
Right, and obviously the last octet would be different if you're connecting two things. Yeah. If there are questions on that, we can address that in a future webinar. As far as, just standard IP stuff, we should definitely do that at some point.
Yeah, and I think while we're talking GUI, we'll mention on Helixnet, you need the Ethernet module installed on the unit to be able to access the web GUI.
Correct. Well, let's talk a little bit about Helixnet now. And is everybody Freespeaked out? Okay.
There's one quick
wait a
little
minute.
question.
Please clarify the in-out level in roles in Freespeak. This creeps people up all the time. Okay. Mr.
There was a
Sorensen.
question about Freespeak. Jeffrey Abramson asked, using fiber to get to the Freespeak splitters, where should the dip switch be set for sync? I think you're talking in the splitter. It should always be in external.
Yeah.
Even with fiber.
Right. The only reason we use that is sometimes you're using, it's a non-contiguous transceiver that's out somewhere in a parking lot or something where the belt pack is going to lose connection and then reconnect when it comes up. In a case like that, you could use internal sync, but only in a case like that. So Dan would like us to clarify the in-out level in roles in Freespeak II. Yes, because The input and the output, you have to remember, are from the perspective of the port that you're going into. Jonathan, you want to elaborate?
Sure. So as far as input output for the belt pack, it's role based, but it applies to the belt pack that has that role assumed. So input output gain is basically everything coming in and out of the internal mixer on the unit. So if they're looking for more headset volume, or if they're looking for more microphone volume, there's other places for that. But if they're looking for that overall mix level, that's where the input output gain would be.
Right. And the
During a
output,
Freespeak show, I always watch the assignment screen, and when I see somebody talking and they're particularly loud or particularly soft, I will then go to this input gain position on that particular role, and I will adjust it there, bring it up or down to adjust that one person on that one belt pack. That's the input gain to the bass, which is basically his microphone level.
Yeah. Now the way I kind of think about it too, if you're you know, an audiophile, so to speak, is you've got your microphone gain and you've got what's going to your headset. We think of those maybe as more of like the gain stages, whereas you think of the input and output gain more of like your faders. So you're riding those to kind of level off that show and make everything a little bit more consistent.
okay. And so on this page in the roles, the input and output are still from the perspective of the port. Yes, elaboration
Perspective
possible?
of the bass. Yeah, they're the input gain to the bass and the output gain from the bass.
So even though it says input gain, it's not input to that role, it's input from that role to the base station. It's a little confusing, as Dan pointed out.
Correct.
Yeah. Jeffrey is asking, oh, wait a minute. Ernest wants us to show the RTS configuration in the assignment page. Okay, so here you go. Take it away, Mr. Sorensen.
Sure. So if we go to the assignment page here, basically what we would do is we would choose a channel. So if we want to pick an empty channel here, we can pick an empty channel. We come back for our assignment here. And again, on the Freespeak side, C is going to be our first channel of that RTS. And again, it goes back to the port setup here. So if we're looking at the assignments here, we can see this 2-wire port. And we can assign that into a physical channel. If we need a separate channel with the other, we would take that second channel and we can split those across.
All right. Okay, so now Jeffrey Abramson is saying or asking, do the settings users set themselves on a belt pack stay on the pack throughout a power cycle? Yes, they do. So if I set things up and I power down my belt pack and I bring them back, those settings will stay. Now,
in the roles tab, though, you have to check the button that says
Right.
use
Oh, yeah.
local settings at the top of that screen.
Yep.
All the way at the top, all the way at the top, all the way at the top.
Yeah.
Use
Right
local settings.
Yeah, right there.
Otherwise,
Right there.
they will go away when you power it down and power it up.
That's correct. Good point. Because the reason for that, Jeffrey, is when you power it back up and you select that role again, you're sucking from the frame all the parameters that have been set in the software in the GUI, not what was done locally. But when we check that box, we can do that. Now, by the way, I should mention while we're on this page, if you could just scroll out there, yes, exactly. There is a way to make it so every time a belt pack turns on, it assigns to a static role. Let's say I want one, Jeffrey has a belt pack, and every time he turns that belt pack on, he wants it to be the Jeffrey role. He doesn't want the follow spot role or the stage manager role, only that. Now, here's the trick with that. If I'm going to select static roles for my belt packs, I better select them for all the belt packs. And the reason is, if I let's say I set belt pack 1617 assigned to be the Jeffrey role or Freespeak II role or whatever role I've selected. I turn that belt pack off. Now, when I've turned it off, that role becomes available to anybody who has not have a static role assigned to their belt pack. Therefore, they could take that role while my belt pack is charging. When I turn my belt pack back on, that role is no longer available. Keep in mind, unlike in Helixnet, only one role can go to one endpoint, to one belt pack, okay? In Helixnet, I can make, let's say, a follow spot role, and 6 different belt packs can select that role, and they'll all have that same role. The architecture of roles is different in Freespeak than it is in Helixnet. So you do them all static or all dynamic, one or the other, okay?
Now,
So now,
one of the things I do when I'm syncing up my belt packs on a
Mhm.
Freespeak system, please go to the overview screen and down to where we see one belt pack. That one belt pack has been plugged in. So if I click on that button, on the first button right over here on the left, the first letters on the left, all the way left, all the way left, all the way left,
Yeah,
right there.
right. Mhm.
Click on that. In the second line, I can select assign a role permanently. So now we check on belt pack 1. Now this belt pack is now assigned to belt pack 1. Now, even if that belt pack is turned off, that role is no longer available to anybody else.
I never knew that. Boy, I love you,
Hey,
Peter.
if you need to learn something about ClearCom, just ask me.
Okay. Did that come out with the most recent firmware? Is
No,
that
it's been
new?
there from day one.
How do you like that? I
Yep,
need to go in for regrooving, apparently.
there we go.
Okay. Very good. Nice to know. And obviously, it'll show up on that assignment page when we look at it.
On the assignment,
roles,
well,
if you-
on the overview stage,
Yeah.
if
Hold
a
up.
belt pack is
Hit
turned
assign to
off
device. No, hit assign to device on that
on the
page.
go ahead and turn that belt pack off. And it will disappear. Most of the information from the row will disappear and go away.
Mm-hmm.
But you can, all you'll see is a number and a bunch of stuff like the last antenna it was on right there.
Right.
Click on that button on the left and bingo, you see who had that before and what assignment it was on. So you can always find out what an turned off belt pack is and where it came from.
My God, I never saw that page. That's so cool. Do me a favor, go to assignments now. I mean, to roles now. And in roles, select Pete and go up top and click on the blue assigned to device. And it says it's okay. It indicates what you did. Very good. Okay.
Exactly.
Cool. Wow. Thank you. I owe you another beer or 5.
First time Josh Flower and I did a show with the Freespeak, one of the first times. We were sitting out there, we were assigning belt packs in each of our 2 different venues, which were tied together. And we right away noticed that every time you assigned a belt pack to something and then you turned it off, you had to reassign it every time you turned it back on. And it actually took us a half an hour to accidentally stumble on the fact that we could assign it permanently in the overview screen, which was different than assigning a role.
Huh. Okay. Let's see. Jason is asking, using the ports A, B, C, and D into RTS mode, can I, through a SAP, get 1/2 on A and B and 3/4 on C and D? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Okay. David is saying, oh, he's referring to his previous statement. This is just the back of the Freespeak II question. Sorry, but this is more of a statement than a question. No need to be sorry. Alex is asking, could you please explain best termination practices, especially when it comes to interfacing with a house system? What a great question, Alex. And boy, do we get a lot of support calls on that kind of stuff. So here's the deal. On any party line 2-wired channel, you must have termination. No matter what flavor device, whose manufacturer is, they have to have termination. Now, you can only have one point of termination on a channel. So if I happen to connect, like you say, you connect into a house system, they have termination on their system, you have termination on your system. Now you have what we call double termination, very clever name for that, double termination. And first of all, you cannot null that into a 4-wire circuit. And second of all, you're going to get a drop in audio volume. So what you're going to do is on either system, you decide which, you're just going to turn termination off. Now, having said all that, keep in mind when you connect two systems together that are 2-wire wet, what I mean by wet is with power systems, their power point of origin is going to be different, and you open yourself up to a ground loop. We make a product called an MT701, which will transformer isolate the voltage, but still allow the voltage that's required to pass call signal to go through. We change it to optical and then bring it back to voltage on the other side. So you may want to put in between each of the channels you share with the house, you may want to get one of those MT701s. We used to make a product called an MT1, which we no longer make, but you can still find them in some places, certainly on eBay. It was a little printed circuit board that you could, a Phoenix connector, the pins 1, 2, and 3 on each end for the two different systems. But there was a termination circuit in there. So when you used that old MT1, you had to turn termination off on both systems and then remember to turn them back on when you disconnected it, because when you don't have termination on a system, you get a horrible squeal when you talk. So that's a gotcha. Anyway, I hope that answers your question, Alex. All right.
In usual practices, you go into a venue and they want to use their follow spot system, let's say. I usually just tell them, leave your follow spot system exactly the way you normally use it. Give me a belt pack by my comm rack on your system with one of your belt packs, and I loop out of that into my system, and then I turn off the termination in my system, and I therefore have their belt pack powered by their system and my system right next to each other, and I can fax it myself without calling them. So I can talk into my system, hear it on their belt pack, and I know that their system is at least hearing me.
Very cool. Yeah. All right. In the network system, the network area of our device, it's pretty self-explanatory. Are we a static IP address or are we DHCP? Most of us have evolved to the point where we don't have to rely on DHCP anymore. Look, we're all audio geeks. We've all been, like I said before, toilet trained by the German governess and want complete control. So this is the best way to do it. The other part of that is when I do everything static, I'm sure that if I'm renting something that, you know, I'm blowing out any previous settings that may have been there that might conflict with my system. So we do recommend that. And I'm just going to assume that everybody understands what an IP address is, what a subnet mask is, and what a gateway is. Obviously, when we're on
You're
one
saying you
VLAN,
recommend using static?
I recommend using static, yes.
Okay, well, I have to disagree with you slightly with that, particularly with Helixnet.
Go ahead.
It's with Helixnet, let's say you don't have a DHCP server.
Yep.
Well, you can do default DHCP, which is
Like
in
link local?
169 range.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now, what I usually do is I pick some static IPs in the 169 range for my base and stuff like that. But I leave all of the belt packs in, I reset them all to DHCP because they can find their own.
In Helixnet.
In Helixnet, yes, Helixnet.
Right.
Because it takes forever to set the IP in a belt pack and it's just a mess. So leave your belt packs in Helixnet in DHCP.
Right, but your base station, you're doing a static IP address too.
I do a static in the default
In the
DHCP
169.
range, 169
Right.
range, exactly.
I'm having a hard time reading. Okay, here we go. I have a question about groups by Anonymous. I have a question about groups when broadcasting to the group. Can the broadcaster be a member of that group or will it cause an echo loop? Okay, great question. So let me backtrack a second. There are two kinds. Okay, now we're not talking about groups in LQ assign. We're talking about if you look at a role can be a member of a group. Okay. Now here, there are two kinds of conferences in Intercom that we typically talk about. Okay, let's say there are three ways to communicate. I can go point to point. So let's say Sean asked that question. Let's say I have a Rom role and I have a Sean role. I can have a point to point from my role in Freespeak, at least I can't do it in Helixnet, but in Freespeak, I can talk directly to Sean point to point and nobody else will hear us. And Sean doesn't even need to have a ROM button on Sean's belt pack. The fact that I pushed the button to talk to Sean, Sean only needs to hit the reply key to talk back to me. Or if Sean recognizes my voice, Sean can then reply on a party line that is known that I'm talking and listening to. However, the party line, when I have a party line, the way I normally assign it is as a talk and a forced listen. In other words, my button is for talk, but the listen pathway is always coming to my party line. Now, I can turn the volume down, or I can go to an activation that's called dual talk and listen, where I can tap it and latch the listen on, and then just push the talk by holding down my momentary talk button and letting go, but I'm still latched, and then I can tap and unlatch. That's a little esoteric, but I can do that. However, normally with a talk with a forced listen, just like on a regular wired belt pack, the listen pathway is always coming to the device. Okay, so I have to make sure I have the volume up to listen, but I can turn the volume down. Now, in a group only has one cross point for each device. All the groups that I collectively I might be members of only have one cross point. So when somebody pushes a button, let's say the audio group, and I'm in the audio group, my belt pack is a member of the audio group. I might not have audio group programmed on my belt pack, but my belt pack is a member of that group. When my belt pack, which is a member of that group, it will automatically hear whatever the person who's pushing that group button hears. And every member of the group will hear that regardless of where their volume is, unless their master volume is turned down. But regardless where their volume is, they'll hear me talking and they can respond back to me as the initiator of the call by hitting the reply key, or they can respond on a party line. Now, if I have a group and I push the button, I will hear myself talking. However, I never program a group as a talk and a listen, a talk and a forced listen, or a dual talk and listen. I only program a group onto a device as a talk. And this is, people who are used to working with matrices understand this concept, that the listen back to the group is superfluous. Because I'm a member of the group, I will automatically hear that. That base station is actually a matrix. It's a router. It's going to, when I push a group button, it will automatically route my audio to every member of the group who will hear it regardless where the rotary encoders have been set. Okay? Sean, I hope that's addressed the question that you asked because you thought it might cause some echo loop. The answer is only program it as a talk. The listen happens automatically, free of charge, by our matrix programmers.
One little feature of the group is, let's say you put a button on your belt pack, being the comms operator, as a button that's labeled Help Com. And you put that Help Com talk button on everybody's, let's say everybody's reply button. You assign it to that instead of them having a reply button. If they push that button, I will be the only person that's a member of that group. I'll hear that person talking. And when they call me, as long as I respond within about 15 or 20 seconds, my response will only go to their bell pack, will not go to the rest of the group. So
Right.
if somebody starts a group conversation, I can have a two-way conversation with them without letting everybody else in the system hear it. But that times out after a few seconds.
Right. As the reply, now the reply key timeout is programmable, by the way, on a
Right.
per role basis. Everybody, I want you to do this. Take your hand and hold it up so you're looking at your palm. And I'm going to assume, and I don't mean any disrespect to anybody who's had a bad accident, but I'm going to assume you all have 5 fingers, a thumb and 4 digits. Okay. Now, let's say the thumb that you're looking at is the person, is you, and you have the button for that call. So that then goes out to all the other fingers, and all the other fingers hear what you said. But pinky wants to hit the reply key. Now, if you put your other fingers down, except like you're doing a Hawaiian shaka sign, the pinky is going to go back to the thumb. That's exactly what Pete just described. When you hit the reply key, the other members of the group won't hear you. Only the initiator of the call will hear you. So that's right, thumb and pinky. Hopefully that explains it. And that's with any kind of device that uses group communication.
I like to, in the Freespeaks in particular, because we've got 4 buttons and everybody somehow finds out 4 things they've got to talk to. So I like to program that that COM help button, or Pete COM button, I usually call it, on their reply key. For those few people that want to have point to points, I have to stop that thing so they can have the ability to use the reply key. But most people, I like to have a way for them to push a button, say, hey, Pete, I'd like to change my button to momentary or something like that. Because there's no easy way for a Freespeak person to, unless they eat up a whole button to talk to COM. And one easy way is to use the reply button to talk to COM.
Mm-hmm. So Callie's got a great question and very apropos here. So what's the best practices of when you're using groups versus party lines? Okay, first of all, with a party line, I can use the volume controls, the rotary encoders, to make the volume of the party line louder or softer. I can't with a group. So that's one thing. If you want to shut off a group, you can't. If your bell pack is a member of that group, the only way to not listen to the group is to take your headset off. Okay, so in a party line, the party line is when I want to be able to talk to several people who are working in my work group, let's say the audio work group or the lighting work group or the video work group or stage group, whatever. Party line is the best way to go. Okay, because when I need to listen to somebody else and need to turn that party line down, I can do it as opposed to the group. I don't like to put more than one group, make a bell pack roll more than a member of one group, because there's no control over the volume. And if we have several groups coming into a bell pack and you want to be able to turn one down, you can't. So I think those are parameters that would be the best practices for that. You got your timestamp? There you go. Thanks. Looks like we're spending a lot of time on Helix, on Freespeak, and I'm happy to do that. I'm curious to know if there are a lot of people who would be very disappointed if we just kept talking about Freespeak, or if we want to start to move on to the other ones, or if people want to come back for another long one. I don't want to overtax everybody, we're drinking from a fire hose. But the fact of the matter is, the questions stimulate other questions, and the answers stimulate other questions, which stimulate other questions. I kind of like that. If it was my druthers, we'd just plow ahead and just stay on Freespeak, but this is a democracy.
Well, Pete, I'm good with staying on Freespeak. How about you? Oh,
Mike,
you need your microphone.
Unmute your mic, Daddy.
Use your words.
Wow, you look
I'm
like a
totally
troll.
good with staying on Freespeak, and I think that Helixnet, there's a lot in Helixnet between the LQ, the panels, the different stations running power line versus running network. We can spend an entire whole
Yeah.
show like this talking
Yeah,
about Helixnet. So
right.
let's just stay
Right.
with Freespeak right now and finish that up because we're pretty much at 2 hours now. I think this pretty much has put everybody to sleep by now. So I think the 126 people out of the original 200 are probably asleep in their chair by now.
No, they're not. We're awesome, aren't you guys? Come on, chime in.
There you
So,
go. So,
can
Ron, why don't you keep on? I'll let you keep just kind of vamping here as we're waiting for some questions to come in. Maybe if you want to
Okay.
share your camera
Yeah.
with us, and any of the other folks. Right now, I think one of the neat things that we're seeing here is that wireless PL, especially let's say Freespeak in this instance. I've run into at least a couple of shows now where it's turned into exclusively my intercom, where they don't even bother putting wired packs out. It's
Or if
just
they do,
all
or
right.
if they do, they're powering them from the Freespeak base.
Right. It's amazing, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I love your auto nulling. I think it's just brilliant. It's simple. It works. The idea though, I think people are very much thinking in the cellular world, and they're expecting to be mobile. They're expecting to go wherever. In fact, I think whether you're in broadcast, whether you're in corporate, the idea of being able to go anywhere. As the more antennas we put out, the more antennas they want, right? Because they want to continue to go and they want to make their way out of the room. And I need to go here. I need to go there. I need to be at the truck. I need to be back again.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. And we see a lot of that. Look, I think everybody on this call knows that RF is voodoo, and there's always a surprise somewhere in the works. That's why even when we have all RF, we do put up hardwire backup stuff, and that's great. RF is expensive, so the people who are, endowing these systems, when the production people make demands for an entire RF system, exclusive RF system, that's a more expensive rental or a more expensive purchase. Hardwire stuff is bulletproof. It's just you plug it in and it works. So there are the pros and cons, but I totally agree with you, Kelly, that we are in a world where people want to be mobile. I know in New York at Rockefeller Center, Streeter over there has got, I don't know, maybe 120 some odd wireless devices that have to be used because even the hard camera people have to be on wireless.
And they're, it's ironic, isn't it? A cable page now needs a wireless PL. I see here Thomas Halpin just brought in a question. Can we talk more about OTA registration? I think that's a great topic. So I'm going to hop off picture here and let you talk.
Yeah, I think all registration is something we want to talk about, and let's get into that. I need somebody to give me their control possibility. Who has
All
control?
right, so stand by. I'm gonna make sure you get that. You want to take your desktop, correct?
Well, okay, we can stay here for now and look at this picture. Okay, so in the general tab of the device, we have some things over here in wireless. You see it says OTA registration enable, but before we do that, I want to show you a couple of things. OTA over the air, OTA system ID. That is a unique ID that ships with this base out of the factory. And it's a 3-digit hexadecimal identifier that when you register a belt pack to a base station, it is the algorithm for the decked hopping, if you will, so that the base station and the belt pack that registers to it know what the patterns are and what's going to happen next in any particular event because deck is a moving target. Wow, that looks interesting on the screen. Deck is a moving target, and so the deck slots are constantly being repopulated by a single belt pack, And so the algorithm for where it needs to be at any given time is defined by that 3-digit hexadecimal code. Don't change it, because it leaves the factory with a unique one. You could change it, but you run the risk of another system being in the next building that's got the same identifier. It's the chances of that are astronomically low, but it's a possibility. Now, having said that, there are people who buy 2 base stations and they change the identifier so they both match. They pair a belt pack to a system, and I'll get into OTA in a second. I'm just going off on a tangent here. They pair the belt pack to one of those base stations, and then the other base station might be a mile away in another part of a theme park or another part of a missile range or some wide separation that's not the same RF contiguous space. And then when that belt pack goes into that RF space, because the identifiers were the same, it will automatically pair to that base station. So there are applications where you do need to futz with this. My recommendation is leave it alone. Okay, then you see a couple of pin numbers. One is the OTA pin number. The base stations they leave the factory with the over-the-air pin number being 0000. And when we go through the OTA process, you will see what we mean by that. Also, there's an admin pin. So if you deny a belt pack's role the ability to see its menu, which you can do, and as we all know, is something important to do in certain people, but let's say you need to send your A2 to go work on that belt pack, the A2, you give the A2 that code. It leaves the factory with the admin pin code of 1111 for the base stations. For the matrices, it leaves the factory with 3246, which is, or is it 4632? I forget. Well, whatever it is, you can see it in the preferences. But 111 is the admin code that when you go to a menu of a device that has been denied menu access, if you roll in that code, and we'll show you how that's done in a second, then you will be able to have menu access. While we're here, just look at a couple of the things that we're seeing here. The AA battery type. As you know, the battery that we use, the lithium battery that comes with the belt pack, that proprietary 18-hour battery, if it ever dies and you don't have a spare one to put in, you can put AA batteries in. But because you want to be able to read the amount of time left on those AA batteries from the front, from the OLED screen on the top of the belt pack, you need to tell the belt pack roll, wait a minute, and then not just the belt pack roll, but the entire system. Are we going to be using regular alkaline AA batteries, or are we going to use nickel metal hydride rechargeable batteries? The reason we have to have a difference here is the way we measure battery life is by the amount of heat that those batteries are generating. And each of those types, the alkaline and nickel metal hydride, their time to heat ratio is a little bit different. So you have to tell the base station, which is actually the arbiter of all these metrics, what type of battery you're going to be using if you do replace it. So it ships as alkaline, but you can change it to nickel metal hydride. We talked about the audio RF filter before, like Peter says, and I'm a proponent of his idea. Turn it on. We let it leave the factory with it turned off because we would like you to have the optimum audio experience. The difference between turning it on and off is so minimal that very few people are going to notice a difference. I think it's worth enabling it. And of course, the role sortings, that's just, are we going to sort our roles alphabetically or by the number that it came up? So that's up to you. All right. Anyway, over-the-air registration. When we engage over-the-air registration, Jonathan, I'm assuming you're the one that's doing this. Do you want to also show video of what it looks like on a belt pack? You feel me? So when you engage that thing, a little bit of glare on your, still a little glare. tilt it a little bit, pull it away because it can't focus like that. And shift the glare. No, I don't know if we're going to be able to. Oh, maybe right there. Okay, there you go. Okay, so if you can see that, when we're in over-the-air registration, once we've enabled it, we have 2 minutes to find each other, to make our little marriage made in heaven, so that the belt pack and the base station know who they are and how to interact with each other. So when you go into the menu, you go to System Connect, and once you're in System Connect, you can use your rotary encoder to scroll around till you see the system that has the V, P, R letters after it. Once you've found that, you hit the D button, which is the select, and that will then register the belt pack to that device. Sometimes it's going to ask you whether you want to, because it's already been registered, you're going to want to lose it, say yeah, and then do it again, select it again, and select it again. Yep, well, down one, yep, that's it, hit D. Now, why? It keeps wanting to do that, doesn't it?
Sometimes you have to
One
go
went
through and
down.
delete all the previous registrations.
Hit D, yeah, that's true. Okay, and now, since we already registered it once before, it's not going to ask us for the over-the-air registration PIN key. It's just going to ask us to select a role, which Jonathan can do by hitting the D button after he selected it. And now that role will momentarily from now pop up, and there it is. Now that belt pack is ready to go.
And at this point, before you turn the belt pack off, you want to go to the overview section of the page and
Yes,
permanently assign that role before you turn the belt pack off.
if that's the productivity you want, absolutely.
Exactly.
Not everybody wants to do that, but it's good practice. And that way you can go and take your piece of white board tape and write on that belt pack, this is Pete's belt pack. Okay.
Now, all that being said, my personal way to register a belt pack is with a BNC cable plugged in the front of the base, because it instantly powers the belt pack and asks you what role do you want. You
BNC
dial up the
cable?
role and
You mean a
plug
USB?
USB.
Or
I just,
USB?
It's 3 letters.
I would
It's just
test
different
it.
3
Yeah,
letters.
just test.
Yeah.
A USB BNC cable, exactly.
BNC is yucky video. We don't talk about that here.
Exactly. And but then you avoid all of the OTA registration number, everything. The first question asks you, what role do you want? You say what role you want, you're done.
All right. Now, just so you know, there's also a way to do it with a USB cable, like Peter was just saying. It's just, you know, the over-the-air registration is a cool feature. We like it. We play with it. Why not? You can go either way. Either way works. I typically only do over-the-air, but you can do it with the cable. Okay, Joe is asking, what are your or anybody's favorite or creative uses of a GPIO? Well, okay, there are lots of possibilities to there. We could do call on talk as one. So if I want to trigger our radio and I might need it, we can do GPIO. I don't use a whole lot of other figures in most of my applications. I know some of our applications want to use it for an on-air light, or some people like to, you know, use it to set off pyro or digicard or MEs or whatever. Anybody got some favorite GPIO?
The comment that you see are those convenience GPIOs. If they're not doing something serious with it, it's triggering a coffee maker, or maybe opening a door that's close by that they don't want to get out of their chair to open each time.
Or unlock.
Also, if you're connecting to, let's say, a front of house audio mixer who never wears a headset, your GPI might trigger a light on his console or in front of him that would tell him to get on the comm system.
Okay. All right. There you go. Dan. Okay, Dan Bushante, another great one here. Here's one. Can we have the final answer? And yes, you can, because I'm going to give it to you right now because I am nothing but opinionated. The final answer on antenna orientation. connector down versus flat, on top of a mic stand, blah, 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 and the uses of pie tins, etc. All right, Dan and everybody out there, because these are great questions. First of all, foremost of all, in a small room, and by small room, I mean, you know, maybe 200-300 square feet, it doesn't make a bit of difference. The orientation really doesn't make much matter. But when you're trying to cover a big area, flat up and down, that's what you want. Flat up and down, up and down. When you're like this, okay, so here's the thing, and I do want to illustrate this. Typically, and you'll see it in the handout that we gave you there, the polar pattern, if you will, of the antenna. The antenna is actually printed on the printed circuit board of the transceiver that it's in there. Okay, it's two little prints on the board at 90 degrees. So the polar pattern of the transceiver is, we call it omnidirectional, but it's more like a donut. So it goes up and around and like that. So at the top of the antenna and the bottom, I should say, transceiver, the top and the bottom of the transceiver module, there's a little bit of a node in. But when I say a little bit of node, depending upon, of course, on the architecture of your environment, you can figure 500, 600, 700 foot radius, okay, from the transceiver. But going straight up and straight down, when you're oriented in the correct up and down flat position, straight up and straight down, it might only be 500 or 600 feet straight up and down, maybe even a little bit less, because it's a round donut. So the top and the bottom don't give you as much coverage as the front and sides. There is a tiny node on the back too. There's a little bit less throw off of the back of the transceiver than it is to the front. Okay, now having said that, there are a lot of cool hacks and tricks that people have been doing with the transceivers to ameliorate multipath, or to try to effectively materially power down a transceiver. So what we're going to do is, there we go. We've got the lovely Pete Erskine Best Audio RF attenuation wang dang doodle there, using that's just a pizza pan, a mesh pizza pan that you can
It's a 16-inch pizza pan, available 6 for $24 on Amazon.
There you go. Or you can go like I did to Bed Bath & Beyond. They have some with handles that you can then use to duct tape them to the mic stand that you're holding it to, or whatever. You can put it on top of the transceiver so that it helps to keep radiation going straight up to a domed, a metal domed arena, which is really like a big parabolic dish, which is going to wreak havoc on you. You can put it off of the back to make it a little bit more directional, or it could be a nice hat. There you go, and it goes with that cool lid here.
I find that the RF filter is the biggest help for multipath.
Yeah.
And if you're in a place like MGM, you might have some issues about little bit of issues about walking around, and this ameliorates some of it. It's not a total fix, but it will help a little bit, particularly if you've got a tall venue, and you could put this on top and just prevent some of the RF from getting back down into it. And the antenna's up high enough so it's above all your, like if your antenna's at 20 feet and everything down is your area, and this, you just want to get rid of the 30 or 40 feet that's above you, it helps up a little bit. And you can use anything. You use aluminum foil or black wrap from the lighting people, anything to just shield it a little bit.
Now, that means you have to talk to lighting people. So
hey, you got to make friends sometime.
Yeah, that's true. Justin MG, my boss, actually came up with this cool box that he made from thick sheet metal that you can, and he put some holes in it so you could put the transceiver inside the box and it would only radiate front out. And it was effective for an application at an arena that was a historic nightmare with RF multipath.
Josh Flower built a couple of giant salad bowls with
Yeah.
a hole in the bottom where he could mount the antenna inside this bowl. Not quite parabolic, but more of a shield.
That's fantastic. That's very Howard Zuckerman-like. I like that. Yeah. We actually got caught without parabs at a football game once, and he made a bunch of them like that. God bless his soul. Okay. So yeah, I think that covers that particular question. Let's see. Sean is asking, in a permanent installation, and if there is such a thing, should the base station be left on 24/7, or is it better off shutting off every night? You know, that's one of those questions that depends upon who you ask and when you ask them. It's my contention that it can stay on all the time. But if we're talking about leaving it on for years, I don't know. The caps are going to leak eventually. Certainly if you're using 2.4, although the new firmware is supposed to fix that, but certainly if you're using 2.4 transceivers, I like to shut it off every night. Just so it flushes the cache of where the look ahead to avoid the active WAPs. But,
along the line of leaving it on, when you come into a venue and you're doing your initial RF frequency scans for your wireless mics, always take a look at your deck band to see that it's totally empty. And some venues go into have their Freespeak systems and they leave their bases on all the time. And just to have, if you're doing a show in there and you're not using their system, talk to the house people and have them turn it off.
Right, because just because they're not using it doesn't mean those transceivers aren't emanating RF. Now, having said that, just because you go ahead and turn the base station off on their system doesn't mean all the transceivers are going to turn off, because some of them might.
No, they have to turn off the power to the antennas. Right.
And remember, the RF happens at the transceiver. The transceiver generates the RF. So if that transceiver is on, even though it's getting no signal from the base station, we're still going to see 1.9 or 2.4 RF radiating from that device. So
good reason to keep your contacts with venue audio people up, so you know who to talk to.
Yes.
Rather than talking to your producer and saying, "Oh, the venue's got this stuff going and I can't." Well, no, you should know the number and names of everybody in a venue to get it working in there. They appreciate you talking to them directly as opposed to bad mouthing them to everybody else.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Look, we're all good neighbors. We're all bros, you know, to some degree or another. And getting along is always the best way as far as I'm concerned. So I agree. All right, so Tyler is asking if Freespeak II encrypted, is Freespeak II encrypted by default, or are there additional processes needed? Okay, so 1.9 DECT is by nature encrypted. You can't go to what used to be Radio Shack or whoever took over from them and buy a scanner and listen to anything. The only way you can hear the system is by being registered to the system. That's why we have the OTA code, which, by the way, you could change it from 0000 if you want and make it any number you want. Just remember that that's the number. But unless a belt pack is connected to your system, you're not going to be able to hear what's going on. So by nature, it's encrypted, but it's not military class encryption by any chance. There used to be some aftermarket companies that were making some products to add additional encryption. That project never ported over from the old Freespeak 1 to the Freespeak 2 because I don't think there was any interest in it, or I don't know what the reason was. But you can feel secure that only people with belt packs registered to your system are capable of hearing or talking on your system. Frequency hopping spread spectrum, the same thing, because the hopping algorithm is unique to each base station, and when the belt pack pairs to it, it gets that. So that's something you should rest assured, sleep well at night. Now, Edward is asking, sorry if I missed this, but is there a way to get a dry line out from Freespeak? Yes, there is. So we have a ClearCom. If not, okay, here is a great thing. The Freespeak II base station allows you to, the backplane has 4 2-wire ports and 4 4-wire ports. And if you're not using them all, you could use one of those 4-wire ports and make that 4-wire port a listening member to all the channels, although it would be a cacophony. Probably what you want to do is just have it do one channel. But then you could take that out as dry audio, because 4-wire is dry audio. If the only port you have is a 2-wire port that you want to use, if you associate that with the channel that you want to record, and you get, I mean, the cheap and dirty way is to just take pin 1 and 3. I don't recommend it, but people have done it. Or you can take, you know, we and many other companies make 2-wire to 4-wire converters. Less expensive than that. You can take an IFB box and plug it in, and just use the earpiece to be your line level audio. Use the volume control like your trim pot into your recorder. Those are tricks that people use.
Also,
sorry?
if you're not using the SA out from your base, just add that in the assignment panel to a party line, and that will be the output of that audio channel on the SA out.
I don't think can the SA be a party line?
If you put it in a party line, it will be the output from a party line.
Wow.
If you do the opposite, put your program in a party line, it
Then
will be the audio
injected.
If you could take both of them and put it in a party line, if you add both the speaker and the SA to a party line, it's automatically made a mix minus and can be an 8th input to your Freespeak base.
Wow. Okay. 9th.
So
9th input.
A 9th input to the Freespeak base, yes. And I've also made a headset to male and female connector, and in a tough mode used a 10th input as the mic jack on the front of the bass, which is a little hard to use. You've got to set the side tone all the way down. It doesn't work real great.
But it's in Commando audio. It's a possibility.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, great. We like that. See? That's why you're running the show here, Daddy-O. Okay. Back to some more of these questions. How do I get back there? Okay, here we go. All right. Sorry, I'm clicking away here. Tyler again. Good questions, Tyler. Given all the COVID-19, what are the recommendations for cleaning the belt packs and heads? Very good. Okay. Go to the ClearCom website or the blog or wherever you get your stuff, or go to LinkedIn and be my buddy and see this over here that you can see on the right-hand side of your screen right now. We have a technical bulletin there on all the best practices for cleaning, what's not too abrasive, what's not going to ruin the surfaces, the best way to do it, what actually is effective for antibacterial, antiviral. It's a very, very good piece. Also, I know PRG put out a video recently that I've seen on LinkedIn showing how they clean all their products. It's beyond the intercoms; it's everything that they do. They've got the full stable of product lines because they do all that stuff. So those are good suggestions on what's happening.
One thing, Rom, I'd like to throw in there. This may be a great time for us to encourage our producers to get headsets, or as the market reemerges, nice gifts, right? For reminding people that you're out there, that you're available, and say, hey, I'd like to give you this headset. Keep it with you,
That'll push you to the front of the line.
Right.
Yeah. Also, you should know our headsets, most of them come with ear socks, okay? And those ear socks, it's like a piece of fabric with some elastic in it that goes right over the ear cup. So it gives you a little bit of protection. I mean, in real life, it's best because the last guy was sweating, or the last person had the conditioner in their hair or something that glopped up the earpiece. But if you need any of these, they're on our parts list as an ES1, ear sock 1. In a pinch, if you need, I've got a few that I could send out to, you know, the first 5 callers or whatever. I'm happy to send them out. But I recommend that too. What some people do in this world, and, you know, especially now in the COVID-19 world, while we're still, you know, being concerned, I would go ahead and get a microphone windscreen and a cable tie. And when you go up to somebody else's headset that you have to wear, take this and put it over that windscreen and cable tie it so it won't fall off. And that way you're not getting the direct cooties of the last person who used that mic. It's not foolproof. I'm sure it's not approved by the CDC, but it's at least 1 or 2 steps beyond. Or, you know, wear a N95 mask and, you know, just accept the muffled sound that you'll have. But best practices are gonna, you know, that's all plates in the air right now. We're gonna have to come up with some good ideas. I'm just spitballing on these, but I know for a fact that a lot of people thinking about this, and any suggestions from the field you have. By the way, I should take a moment now. I'm sure it'll be somewhere here, but anybody who wants my information, my email is ROM, Romeo Oscar Mike, at clearcom.com, CLEARCOM.com. I'm on LinkedIn, and there's a lot of good connections I have there. If you're interested, and I'm happy to join you into our circle of friends. I am not on Facebook. My cell phone number is area code 510-919-2732. Okay. My blood type is A+. All right, so I think we've answered all the questions so far, and I know we've gone a bit over time here. I am confident that we are going to schedule more of these, and we're going to cover maybe more in-depth Freespeak. Certainly, we're going to get into Helixnet, LQ, and Agent IC. I can say right now that Agent IC is a free download, and there you see on your screen contacts for all of us here. You don't need the Rosenblum for me. You can just write Rom at ClearCom. It'll save you some carpal tunnel. But you could do rom.rosenblum, certainly. It's just, there's only one Rom, and that's just the way it is. Agent IC is a free download app that you can get from wherever you get your apps. For right now, while nobody's using the demo, you could use the demo to talk amongst yourselves and check it out. And we'll talk about that when we get to the LQ Agent IC portion of this.
That's a great segue, I think, Rom, to kind of wrap up what we had for today. We'll certainly be talking about finding a date as soon as possible to dig deeper into Helixnet and LQ, because I think talk about timely. LQ is one of those things that is at the top of forefront of all what we're thinking about. So you know, there were a couple notes I took away, 2 big ones. One is definitely the offline editor seemed to be pretty popular, and we know that engineering is on that one. Number 2, I think I heard a lot of talk about making friends across departments, right? Pete talked about getting to know the house people. This industry is about cross relations between everybody, right? And now is that time to make friends. You got LinkedIn. Find new friends that you've never had before. I made 552 new friends in the last 3 days, so that's pretty awesome. At some point, I'll get to meet some of you. If you didn't get the Dropbox link for any reason, reach out to us on our email, and we'll make sure that you get a link to all of Rom's notes there. The handouts were obviously downloadable. Let's see. throw out your deep dive topics. We want to know these kind of things. I am so pumped about today. This was exactly what we wanted to accomplish with this platform, is to say, look, we're going to take all kinds of tangents. We're going to go all over the map. And hopefully at the end of the day, people are getting real world questions answered, right, and asked. Let's see here. Encouraging our vendors, all right, everybody who owns ClearCom product. When we emerge out of this, and as Rom said, we will emerge out of this someday. When it's safe for people to come over, even if there's not work, please open your doors up to the freelance community that's out there. Let's have as many open houses across as many offices in the United States as possible, where the freelance community can get in, they can get hands-on. I'm a firm believer that that's how you're going to find the next wave of new talent, no matter what that age group is. Make this an opportunity to find new relationships that you didn't have before. Invest in yourself, but also invest in those vendors. Go out there, and the people that are buying this product and the people that are deploying it in the field, get to know them, because they're obviously people that think the same way you do. Buy a headset, right? Getting that inventory to be ready. Personal headsets mean a little more even than before. So I'm going to talk to you real quick about what's coming up on our next set of episodes. Wednesday, James Stoffel, RF. We're going to be talking about everything from where we are on the repack to LED walls to fundamentals of RF. So regardless of what you know about RF or what you think about on RF, join us. Either way, I think you're going to find it really informative. We're going to have some neat things to talk about there. Friday is going to be Unity, talking about their app and the phone, and creating virtual intercom when all you have is everyone in the field. There's a couple neat applications for that. And then Thursday, we're starting a new one called Lunch with Pete. It won't be every Thursday. It might actually be Tuesdays. It might be Mondays, might be Fridays, but it's Lunch with Pete. And there's Pete. He's actually having dinner right now, so technically you can say you had dinner with Pete. But the idea of Lunch with Pete is going to be all kinds of cool topics. One of those being this week, show prep and labeling, and how he uses his label maker, and what a great way to keep track of headsets on show site with COVID now. Put their name on it. Seems pretty simple to me, right? This is your headset. You're going to have it for the duration of the show.
Well, I will say we're not going to test the headsets when they come back in. So, I mean, not test them for COVID-19 anyway.
Correct.
So,
right.
I'm not
right.
Gonna
exactly.
I'm not going to touch them. Lots of rubber gloves when I pull up the comm system.
Yeah. We're going to have to see what new thing you invent, because you had your shoe rack. And now this, boy, all bets are off now, aren't they? Something I want to throw out to the community at large. I'll put a LinkedIn note out tonight, but we're talking about how do we do a state of the industry webinar. It's going to not have a lot to do with technical. It's going to have more to do with how do we emerge out of this into our new business? How do we work differently? Things are going to look a lot different for the foreseeable future. I've got a friend of ours that's going to join us to talk about what is the best way to deal with this. There's emotional challenges, but the business, how do we stay positive in a downturned environment? So please go on to our website in the comments section, go on to Facebook, go on to LinkedIn, and give us some ideas of evening hours maybe that would be good for you, or early morning hours. We got nothing else to do for the next couple weeks, and I just got to hit start broadcast and off we go. So we want to continue this collaboration, this questioning. If you're interested in smaller groups, whatever it is, please throw it out there. Let's talk about it. Meanwhile, we're going to see you here hopefully on Wednesday with James Stoffel. Again, go to our website, go and sign up. These are no cost. Please pass them on to your friends, co-workers, anybody you know, because this is just a great opportunity for us to do something that we haven't done before, and to just deal in a world where the rules are changing by the minute. So thanks again for joining us on behalf of Pete and Mac. We appreciate you sharing this information and sharing, well, almost 3 hours with us. So have a great evening, and we'll look forward to our next one together. So long.